break, there are fresh perspectives and a bit of time to strap in once more as the fight for the championship wanes down its regular season, starting with the largest and baddest track on the schedule. Welcome to Talladega Superspeedway, a place that holds no mercy, where for the 7th time in 2025, we welcome you to the inaugural season of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series and our coverage tonight on the KBueno Racing Network. And tonight we throw back just a little bit to the times in the old days of the dawn of the millennium as we push this season into the future. Welcome to the broadcast booth where alongside Francisco Bacalhau, I'm Kenneth Bueno. Now Francisco, we took a bit of time off the short track race at New Hampshire. We had the All-Star break, Mazda MX-5s at Martinsville. Plenty of the guys got their chance to rub some fenders, have a bit of fun, but we're back locked into the serious part of this regular season. Now jumping into the second half tonight with Talladega.
Absolutely back to be back here at the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. The smell of a blown engine, tires, and some sunburn on our skins is finally worn off, and we're back for our normal Sunday action from the most action-packed racetrack on our schedule for points-paying positions, the Talladega Superspeedway, to kick off the second half of the regular season. And this is going to be the half of the schedule, Kenneth, that we look at, and there's just so much diversity. See Talladega, then we go to the Monster Mile, the Michigan International Speedway, Pocono, Nashville, Gateway, and Daytona to close off the regular season here on May 18th before we take an off week Memorial Day weekend, and we kick off the playoffs at the Charlotte Motor Speedway at the beginning of June. So this half of the schedule right there, so diverse, so different, very challenging, and it all starts here at Talladega.
Yeah, this regular season has blown by in a blur. It's been crazy to see what the drivers have been able to put together storyline-wise as we've jumped into the All-Star break, and now that we're right out of it, fresh off of a short track race, you go to a super speedway like Talladega. First time we see a track like this since the opener at Daytona. I think we're in for a very stellar show. Possible opportunity, by the way, for a driver to get their first career DTH Cup Series victory. We've already seen a bit of history done already with the likes of Droppin' the Hammah winning a ton of races. But Francisco, things did stop after the last race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. This is what happened several weeks ago, not exactly 1 week ago, but several weeks past before the All-Star break, taking the green at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, a brand new refreshed track on the iRacing service, but it didn't come without its chaos. There's Richard Swavely going sideways, Justin Erb right behind him, and the story of the day, Ross Harlow taking command from the pole position, leading the many laps. He had to hold off a feisty Steven Stempien and Warren Kyle Keith, and we'll talk about them a little later.
Yeah, Ross Harlow and Lawson Field were some of the fastest the entire race, but it was Ross Harlow on long runs eventually that showed out on just how good he was. There was Steven Stempien and Cedric Hunter making contact early in the race, and this is just one of the first instances, Kenneth, of Steven Stempien's night at his home racetrack not going the way he wanted.
Yeah, he would have several incidents over his first run at New Hampshire this season. Lawson Field getting a job of cutting through the field like he's been doing all season long, has not singly qualified a race in 2025, has been moving his way through the field, no problem there, and took the lead after that hole-in-the-wall move in the middle of 1 and 2 to get by Warren Kyle Keith and make his way by Harlow. Then a bit of chaos with Erb and Swavely again adding on to James Kunkel, and by stage 2, Francisco, it ended under yellow because we had a caution right before the stage came out of lap 60, but in the route to lap 120, things did not get prettier. There's Eric Schaefer, Alex Muscarella getting into a pileup off of the turn 2 area of the racetrack, and then Steven Stempien finding trouble again after moving his way to a race-high third after dropping out the first time. Then he ends up spun on the back straightaway while Ross Harlow was able to walk away from a big charge from Lawson Field. He takes stage number 2. And I think from here on out, Francisco, the racing got better. The chaos turned up. But again, it was Lawson versus Ross, no matter how you squared it by the end of the race.
Yeah, eventually you were going to have to beat the 9 car to win the race. There's Schaefer going for a spill on the front straightaway there off of turn 4 with some help. And here we go, late in the race, it's the 16 holding off the charge from Peel, who was making the apron work, tried to see if he can find some extra grip there, and despite the contact off 4, the 16 hung on tough and took the checkered flag for his first win of the season, and more importantly, Kenneth, ending a 5-race winning streak for DBR.
Yep, DBR had controlled the beginning portion of this regular season. Ross Harlow getting the win. It was huge for him. And after a couple of rocky weeks, the first several races, Ross Harlow has found his groove. Many top 10s already in consecutive fashion to his name, now added on with a race victory from New Hampshire. I think he's going into this one a little less worried, Francisco, because I know we're not talking about end of the regular season fully where drivers are sending their haymakers to make the playoffs and the postseason, but Talladega is Talladega. It's a dangerous racetrack no matter how you look at it. So for tonight, I think anybody with a race win, a little lucky that they're escaping this huge racetrack, and if they come away with a bad finish, as a driver, they're probably not too much worried about what will follow.
The least worried driver out here is going to be Lawson Peel. He's looking to just have fun with it and see if he can find himself in a position to win. Remember, Peel finished second in the opening race at the Daytona International Speedway to the 94 of Timothy Stubblefield, who won the race on that occasion. So even though Lawson Peel is so good everywhere else, and the super speedways are that X factor for someone else to do something with this opportunity, Lawson Peel is still someone who can get it done here. So everybody with the win is going to be extra aggressive, just knowing they have that win to bank on to get into the postseason. Everybody without a win, it's going to come down to their mentality. You can ride in the back, you can be aggressive up at the front. I think recently, in the last couple of years, Kenneth, with these next-gen cars, we've seen plenty of green flag action at Talladega Super Speedway, but it's the end of the race when all the chaos get ready to get formed up, and we get those late cautions that breed other cautions. That's when it starts to get messy.
That's what happens when you race at a track at 2.66 miles. And speaking of Lawson Peel, only still one finish outside of the top 10, and that was 11th back in mid-February at the Phoenix Raceway after his teammate Eric Schaefer took the W away. Let's get a better look at what we should expect overhead with our KBueno track map. Other images provided to us by Google Earth, and this is the biggest oval track we will see on the schedule at 2.66 miles. It is a behemoth located in the heart of Alabama, 4.28 kilometers. Track opened back in 1969 from the idea that NASCAR executives wanted a track bigger than Daytona International Speedway. Hence, this track was made on the former air base here in Alabama. So Talladega was born. 32 to 33 degrees of banking in the corners, so it's not one to play around with. 16.5 degrees on that main tri-oval that leads you to the start-finish line, a couple thousand feet off of the center line of that tri-oval. So it's not exactly where Daytona is, and like we've seen in prior installments of Talladega races across the sim, whether it be Sunoco, which was the previous series compared to this, or other series you've seen on the KBueno Racing Network, those last several hundred feet matter a ton, giving you a big run that could get you the race victory.
And you know, Kenneth, I've heard rumors that this track was built on an ancient burial ground, which, if true, if it really is true, that could explain a lot of the chaos they've seen here.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if anyone's watched that Emp Lemon video on Talladega Super Speedway or the Talladega Curse, maybe you can get a bit more information on the history of this sacred ground and how there is seemingly some kind of floating omen around this 2.66 mile super speedway. Remember, the last time we were on a super speedway was to kick off the year, and like Francisco mentioned, you said Timothy Stubblefield getting the win through the last lap, but it wasn't without its chaos. We did see the crash off turn 4, Justin Hendry side by side fighting for the win. All of a sudden, him and the other driver tango off of turn 4, and that leaves clear runway for Timothy Stubblefield. And that is at a track where the start-finish line is right in the middle of the tri-oval. When you add a bit more space, possible more chaos with a wider racetrack. And as we go into it, I mean, the storyline seems to be DBR in control of the entire field, Lawson dominating so far, Ross Harlow finding the success. But at a super speedway, do you find any favorites here, any teams that can break out and start putting themselves in the spotlight from tonight's race?
It's hard to say a team specifically, Kenneth, just because there's so much at play. But I will say the team that is able to keep numbers together, able to perform the best, that team usually gives the best kind of performances, the best results. So it might not be some name, whether it's Category 5, DBR, or anything like that. But if you're able to stick together and run some good laps and make the lines work in your favor, then you're going to be the most successful team. We've seen that in previous histories, but back in 4 wide, with Murray Reading Motorsports, normally have their team cars all together in the same part of the racetrack, and they're usually up front at these super speedway races. So when we go to Daytona later this week, that's a team I've got my eye on to be in that position, to dominate both lines and make those lines work. Can someone try to replicate that success here today? We'll just have to find out.
And when you look at drafting tracks, you think of strength in numbers. Drinkin' Bros Racing has the most amount of teammates in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series field, but several big teams follow, although they have a couple less drivers on their camp. You look at D-Legacy Motor Club, the several Toyotas they have on their side of things. Droppin' the Hammah, their four-car team has been very strong over the season, although they have yet to find a win. Category 5 Esports, I mean, we've seen how strong they've been. Cedric Hunter and the likes of Zachary Hall, how good they've been without a race win in 2025, so things can very well change. One driver that has been able to put himself in the spotlight from our only super speedway race from the short sample size, Kip Easley for Drinkin' Bros Racing led 39 of the 125 laps at the World Center of Racing in Daytona Beach. So someone you may want to look out for if you're trying to think first super speedway and first DTH Cup Series win. Let's take you trackside and take you through the starting grid, where on the front row, Steven Stempian, who needs a redemption arc after New Hampshire Motor Speedway befell him 2 weeks ago. He's got the front time with a 53.768 on the grid. Ross Harlow, the New Hampshire race winner, is going to look to go 2 in a row in 2025. He'll bring the 16 car on the outside of row number 1. Category 5 Esports, Cedric Hunter lines up his number 45 Toyota from the inside of the second row in third. Richard Swavely in car number 32 for Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports. He'll be on the outside in fourth. Justin Erb for the TOW Racing stable is going to be inside the top 5. And Colin Forrester, name that we see often on the KBueno Racing Network, making his debut appearance in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series' inaugural season. He'll bring the 99 car from P6 on the starting grid. Chris Cabot in the 25 Toyota will line up 7th. Brandon Banks for Drinkin' Bros Racing will tally in 8th. That is the Las Vegas or Kansas Speedway winner. As a matter of fact, behind them, Chicagoland rather. Zachary Hall in 9th, and Kip Easley for DBR rounds out the top 10.
11th goes to Justin Hendry, who was in contention to win the Daytona race. He'll be rolling off from P11 with Sean Kalis in the number 90 in P number 12. Warren Kyle Keithel, forename, will be in the inside of row number 7. You see the Interstate Batteries machine there. Throw back, I believe, to Bobby Labonte, that is, and Timothy Stubblefield, Daytona winner, alongside him as well. Looking back, we have league owner Chris Progar in the number 7 in P15 with James Kunkel in the 42 alongside of him. Daniel Holdcroft in the 31 is throwing it back to Jeff Burton with alongside him the number 1 of Dusty Applin. Jason Hastings behind in his classic in and out number 4 with the 18 of Robert A. Moyer Jr. rounding out the top 20.
Back in P21, you'll find Richard Modridge in his number 71 Chevrolet. Tony Kimmett will man the number 12 car from P22 on the outside of the row. Stephen Harlow has been strong at several tracks in 2025, searching for his first win on a super speedway. 23rd it'll be for him in his number 11. Alex Muscarello will bring his iconic number 48 number to 24th on the starting grid. And then, typical of the 3-time winner this season, Lawson Peel, he'll roll off 25th place, row 13, followed by his teammate Eric Schaefer in the classic Dale Sr. number 3. Craig Parks brings his number 17 Chevrolet to 27th on the grid. C.J. Munier back in 28th. Casey Knighton rolls off from 29th with Kevin Roy and Eric Stewart bringing the end of our 31-car field from Talladega Superspeedway. No surprise, we're seeing a big field at a track this big. Gives anyone basically the shot at a race W. Let's get a look at our SK Sim Racing race analysis from Dega Francisco. A bit of a different structure to what we've seen before. 35, 40, and 50 that leads us all the way to the lap 125 mark.
It's going to be crucial to point out as well, Kenneth, the fuel window for Talladega is about 35 to 40 laps. So when you look at this first stage, it's going to be tight on fuel, but they should be good to go even if it goes green. That second stage, those caution laps from the end of the first stage are going to also help out significantly in trying to get to the stage end on fuel. But the biggest point of interest is going to be that final stage. If that final stage goes green flag, they'll have to make a pit stop, and knowing how this racetrack is, it will be probably fuel only if they get that opportunity.
We've seen it often where the first two stages are cause of no concern. That final stage is always the strategic part of the race where everyone has to figure out what they are going to do. But with a 40-lap stage 2, you are cutting it very close, so the pit stops may just come our way earlier than we expect. It's a pair of Chevrolets on the front row for our second super speedway race of this inaugural DTH Cup Series season. Steven Stempien with Ross Harlow on the outside take us green flag racing from Talladega. And through the first two corners, Stempien out front by several car lengths to the first man on the outside line, Richard Swavely, with Colin Forrester to give support. Nobody extending the invitation to go up high. Everyone willing to stay near the double yellow line that recently got added to iRacing with the recent patch that redesigned this racetrack to give it the looks of 2025. But Stempien, no doubt, the clear man in control at the front. Hunter, Harlow, Erb, and Gabo, the top five, back to the line.
A single file on the inside for the opening handful of laps. That could change throughout the evening and possibly go to the outside, which with this car seems to be the preferred line at times. And further back through the field, mostly single file, no three-wide action yet. A couple of cars dipped below the yellow line or went up high to drop positions and get to the back of the pack where they're probably going to be more comfortable for the early portion of this race. One of those being the 42 of James Kunkel. He's all the way back into 27th. He's got Alex Mascarella behind him, among others that are right now in the back of the pack riding. You see Steven Stempien leading this field, and most of the time, if not almost all of the time, is going to be spent looking at what Cedric Hunter does behind him rather than what's going on in front of him.
Stempien goes into this race with a chip on his shoulder. We mentioned the troubles that came about at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. He told us before that race, "I'm all yours, broadcast-wise, for the night. I'm ready for interviews. I'm ready for any sort of contact with me throughout the race." And he loves that racetrack dearly. Had it scheduled just like Ross Harlow did to go at it all and go for the race victory. But after two of the incidents, Stempien had to deal with an ending finishing position of 20th after starting on the front row outside in position number 2. So he comes into this race with a lot of momentum to his way and a lot of possible redemption he can make here at Talladega with a scheme that is known for winning and a driver that's known for winning super speedway races in Dale Earnhardt Jr. We'll get into that in just a little bit through our throwback night here from Talladega Super Speedway. But are you surprised, Francisco, to see no real movement from that outside lane? We only see, a couple guys up there, but for the most part, everyone's staying reluctant at making a move up top or finding some momentum up there. Colin Forrester and Richard Swavely were the head honchos up high. And now it's Zachary Hall for Category 5 Esports looking to make the charge right around Kip Easley in P11.
Well, you can see the outside lane formed up there towards the mid-pack area, but I am a little bit surprised we don't see anybody closer to the front. Try it. It's normally something we see every super speedway, especially with considering how much faster that outside can tend to be. So we'll probably see that as the laps go on. Remember, this is 125 laps, a really long race here tonight. But look at the right side of your screen. It's a winner, a frequent winner at Super Speedway Racing, has several Daytona wins under his belt. Colin Forrester throwing it back with the Aaron's Dream Machine. That's a really good throwback, an incredible era from an era of NASCAR that we grew up watching, Kenneth. The Aaron's Dream Machine, a part of Michael Waltrip Racing, and usually was up front in these super speedway races. So throw that in with Colin Forrester, and that's somebody who wants to drive that thing to victory lane.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite paint schemes of all time in those early 2000s or 2010s NASCAR era with David Rudiman and a couple others that drove that 99 car from the Nationwide Series to the Cup Series and everything in between. But Forrester, had been up there on the outside like we mentioned and quickly falls back to 30th. So decides he doesn't really scramble around this top 15 or so. He wants to be where he's at the very back. Forrester, like we mentioned on the starting grid, making his first appearance in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series. He frequents oftenly in the 4-Wide Racing TJ's Team Series and had been a crucial part of the late end of the Sunoco Cup Series campaigns. Had a couple of race victories to his credit and some Championship 4 appearances. And now going to try to make a late season push if he's still eligible. Right now, though, he's on the back foot. P30 dead last as we look at it. So the top 4 have broken away quite a bit. Justin Erb is that final car after a bit of troubles for the season for car number 20. You'll pick up Chris Caveau right behind, and finally there seems to be some positive movement from those on the outside lane. Zachary Hall has been patient. He's been waiting with a car in support. It was Richard Swavely at first. Now it's Kip Easley. Makes their way into P6.
Kip Easley providing some good help to the back of the 23, trying to push him up there on the outside lane. And like I said, you're not trying to be super aggressive this early just because it's so many laps in this race. But as the outside continues to get momentum, as they continue to show an opportunity of going up to the front, guys will try to make it work. And you see that's a great run right there in the second half of the trial. He's going to try to get to the quarter panel of the 16 to drag him back, unable to do so there. So it's probably going to hurt them a little bit, but right here off of the big banking is where the outside's able to get a run. They go away from them to get away from the side draft, and if Easley's able to get to his rear bumper, it'll give the 23 a good push. Here comes the push now, and it's going to get him level with the 16 going into 3.
When you get that Alabama gang super stretch momentum from the top end of the banking here in the corners, it gives you such a large heap of forward momentum, and it gets you possibly the lead if you're in that situation off of turn 2 and going into turn 3. It gets Hall to 4th at least. He'll catch Justin Erb with the help from Kip Easley Chevrolet, who, like we said, led 39 of the 125 at Daytona, put himself in position to win his first career drop in the Hammah Cup Series race, but a crash involving Easley late in the going would basically take him out of contention. He's another driver searching for a win after some bad luck, specifically on this type of discipline, but it's about 6 or 7 cars on the outside lane. They'll make it work and follow through to 3rd. And Steven Stepien continues his control up front. No move behind him from Cedric Hunter nor from the tertiary car of Ross Harlow in his number 16. We see a lot of great colors across this Talladega Superspeedway. That's because we are going throwback racing tonight. And that means we're dating it back to 2000 to 2004. So around that area of NASCAR history, drivers are getting their best throwbacks in. And here's our
Kip Easley moved up after a run by the 42 of James Kunkel, so now the 23 has lost positions, and there's a 3-car breakaway momentarily at the front as the 20 begins to go forward right now. And there's another throwback right there, one that I like seeing on the racetrack. That is a Kip Easley operating a throwback to Kyle Busch's rookie year, I believe.
Yeah, that is that old CarQuest car from about 2007 that Ross Harlow, or rather Kip Easley, is throwing it back to. Now he's in the middle of the sucker hole, so James Kunkel will put him on the middle lane, and so Easley will have no help. He'll try and follow through behind the number 32, Richard Swavely, and that red and yellow McDonald's throwback of Timothy Stubble.
You know, Kenneth, this is one I have to find to add to my Kyle Busch collection, because I would love to have as many Kyle Busch cars in my diecast collection as possible. I almost have more number 8s than I do 18s, and I think that should not be the case, but it's very difficult. I was talking to you about this last week at the racetrack. You go outside of Florida, and that's when you find those Fanatics tents from people in the region. They go up, they prop their tents up, and they sell some really good finds, some old diecast or merch. I mean, I remember seeing Coke bottles that are still unopened with Dale Earnhardt on the actual bottle itself, so it just goes to show the kind of things you can find there, and I think I have to wait for an opportunity to go in there and find some old Kyle Busch number 5 merchandise or some older late 2000s, early 2010s paint schemes from his early Cup days, or even the Nationwide Series ones like the Monster Energy 54. Those are among other things I would like to buy, but those tents, those are some great things.
Yeah, hopefully you can find some of that. I was about to ask what your oldest Kyle Busch diecast is.
It's the 2012 primary M&M's paint scheme, not the shootout one that he went to victory there, or even the Richmond one, because those were the same, but rather the one he ran in the 500.
Oh, okay. Well,
they were slightly different.
Well, we got to get your hands on at least one of the old Kellogg's cars that Kyle Busch used to run back in the day when he started his Cup career in the mid-2000s and made that number very successful in the Busch Series and on the Cup Series side of things late in the going. Here's a look on board with Chris Pogar as he tries to help the outside lane push forward, and now they've got momentum on their side. The Mountain Dew Toyota Camry, James Kunkel for D Legacy Motor Club has got Warren Keith right behind him and to help, and I think Cedric Hunter gets stacked up and it gets others involved. Ross Harlow goes sliding through the inside grass, and so does Chris Cabot. We will stay green, but there is a bunch of damage to the front end of Gabot's machine, to Harlow, and to Cedric Hunter, but somehow we will stay under the green flag. And I don't know what happened there, Francisco, whether that was motor troubles for Cedric Hunter, or maybe the car got too hot as he was pushing Stepien to the lead.
It looked like there was a stack up. Let's see if we can get a second look at it so that we were able to diagnose better what happened. So there you see on the inside lane, it happened around Herb and Harlow. There you see just around here. Let's see if there's any smoke. And no, that actually looks like that glitch we've seen at some of the super speedway races. You saw the way the 45 shot back, and he's still running right now on the racetrack. That looks like it was the glitch we've seen in a couple of races beforehand.
Oh yeah, it does look like a bumper glitch. So it shoots Cedric Hunter's machine backwards, and it just stacks up the entirety of the field on the inside lane behind him. So a really tough break for the likes of Cedric Hunter and for Chris Cabot and for Ross Harlow, basically all of them performing well at the jump of this race, and that in turn gives us our first lead change at lap 14. James Kunkel will steal the top spot away. Warren Keith and Richard Swavely will take away first through third, and Stepien, who had controlled the first 10 or so laps, now drops back to fourth as this main pack only 8 cars deep. With that one situation, Francisco, it takes one mistake for the field to break up in pairs or even in sort of strings, and I think all these guys at the front may be a little bit happy that they have a bit of distance to those behind, but that at the expense of some at the front.
Yeah, it broke the pack up, and honestly, it wasn't really a mistake. It was just really just a weird set of circumstances here. I got the onboard now with Cedric Hunter, and you could probably get a better view of it from this perspective. You see he's just kind of chilling on his bumper, and then all of a sudden right here, boom. And he's still running. You could hear the engine still running right now, and he's currently running in the 6th spot, so he's still in the draft. It's just really unfortunate, and you can see just how it set the pack into a scramble in front of him, and then behind him, everybody was all over the place, so they were just trying their best to recover. Just a really odd set of circumstances, Kenneth, but thankfully for everybody, it's still over 100 laps to go in this race.
Well, luckily for Hunter, he's in the draft still, so his car will not be hampered.
Oh, but it's destroyed.
But yeah, the front end is beat up a little bit, and so is that rear bumper quite a bit. So this car may be ailing if it's leading a pack or if it's out in clean air somewhere at the front end of a line. Thankfully, Hunter has some support, and the field hasn't broken up much since the initial contact and that incident entering turn 3. But Hunter will have to deal with a damaged Toyota Camry for basically the rest of this stage if we don't find ourselves with the yellow flag. And if we do, Hunter's going to give up all of the track position to be at the very back where the likes of Chris Cabot, Robert A. Moyer Jr., Alex Muscarella, and Ross Harlow are right now. I think Hunter definitely had the best luck out of all of them, but Francisco, here's Ross Harlow trapped in a pack of at least 5 cars, led by the 77 of Kevin Roy in 24th.
Yeah, there's a couple of packs throughout the racetrack, as most of these drivers have attempted to recover from that incident on the back grid, where you have this pack, which is the 3rd pack, if you will, down in the 20s. You have another pack further up ahead being led by Jason Hastings, about 7 seconds behind the race leader, and it's got a couple of DBR drivers in it. You got Hastings, Schaefer, Kivett, Munier, Lawson Peel, Zachary Hall's in there as well as Richard Modric, Casey Knighton, Justin Hendry, and then you have the pack with Kevin Roy back in 24. So different packs throughout this field, and they're pretty decently separated from one another. So, and they're considering they're all single file. If nothing goes too crazy here in this stage for any of the positions, this could see us go all the way through to lap 35, relatively event-free.
And we may have some strategy in there as well. We know that things will get close to the fuel window from stage number 1. There's a bit of wiggling down the Alabama King super stretch, fighting for 22nd. And that was Richard Modric, Sean Kalis going a bit sideways. They let the rest of the guys go by in the inside lane. Probably something you don't want to do if you're trapped in the secondary group of cars, as the front pack finds some life. Steven Stempian works up high, help from Easley and from Harlow. Stempian back to the point in turn 1.
We can actually find the entire way of how that checkup happened. It started at the very front when the 4 car went up the block, and watch as they all domino into each other, checking up continuously, and then almost gets turned by the 90.
That's what happens with these next-gen cars. You get such a big run from the driver in front of you. In the wake of that turbulent air, but a lot of slipstream, and when somebody has to back out, the rest of the guys follow through. So think of it just like a traffic jam. If there's a red marker anywhere on Apple Maps and you see cars slowing down, everyone's just going to get checked up behind until it eventually clears up. But everyone on
like
the inside
826.
there, yeah, basically the 826 almost at all times, it feels like. But the inside lane stacking up a bit will hamper their performance as the battle for the lead continues on. Stempian found some opening space to lead the race back to the stripe and to turn 1, but he'll match Kunko's speed as they go back into the corner and try this once again at around lap 20. Remember, we are going 35 laps to the end of stage 1, so with 15 to go, everyone in this main pack are giving themselves the shot at all the stage points and the stage victory. And Easley is giving a whale of a shove to Stempian. That outside group got at least 4 to 5 car lengths in front of James Kunko. No response, and an unanswered run gets Stempian the race lead for the 2nd time tonight.
And this was kind of what I was looking for earlier in the race, is the outside to get that kind of momentum, clear the inside lane, and then they stay there as they are, at least for now. The outside lane with this race car, I'm not sure what it is with the setup or what exactly they have going on with just the overall aerodynamics of it, but it's just able to make the outside work so much better than it can on the bottom. We see it here, we see it at Daytona, and even Atlanta. It's just so much better overall consistently. You have to really put on an effort on the bottom to challenge against the high side, especially on these corners. But I mean, look at that run that James Kunkel gets on the bottom to get side by side with your race leader momentarily. He's got the help from Warren Kyle Keith behind. Those Toyotas really making hay on the bottom.
Yeah, with that outside group, I mean, can't really stunt them when they're off of the 2nd or 4th corner, and they've got a lot of momentum to their credit. There's the onboard look from Stephen Harlow, who's had some very good finishes through 2025, one of them being a 2nd place outing at the Phoenix Raceway, just shy of the race win in those final laps. And with the Project Hopner car colors again on his Chevrolet, this time in ode to Brett Bodine's 2002 Hooters car with that classic orange, black, and white, and the very simple but effective and very memorable paint scheme that Brett Bodine used to run and made very famous from Alan Kowicki's 1992 title back at Atlanta Motor Speedway in the great chase for that championship that year, with many, many other drivers that were mathematically eligible for the championship that year. Stephen Harlow throwing back to a very rare pull from the Hooters era of NASCAR, and then that specific Hooters scheme as he ranks 3rd on the outside.
Another good throwback, since you already mentioned it, to an era very similar. Brandon Banks was at the very tail end of this main pack. He's basically copying Kyle Larson's throwback from this year, but I mean, it's such a great paint scheme. Back to good old Terry Labonte from 2003 when he captured that victory at the Darlington Raceway, and that's what Kyle Larson's going to be running at Darlington next week.
It's a beautiful scheme that was the throwback, at least, unveiled not too long ago at Darlington. They put the old car right next to the current car, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous scheme. And with Brandon Banks basically running a Kyle Larson-esque paint scheme with paulscars.com, this time hendrickcars.com, on his Chevrolet, he's going to be with the very same colors as he's at the tail end of this main pack, and there may be trouble for Cedric Hunter. He's at the very back of this thing, was running inside the top 6. Then all of a sudden, Francisco, he is the trailing car at the back end of this group, back in 13th. So any mishap from Hunter from here on out, he will lose touch from everybody in this main pack. He's already out of stage points projection, so Hunter has to fight to survive as the fight for the lead continues to run through back to turn 1.
Yeah, he can't afford to lift. Otherwise, he's going to lose the draft. That's why I saw him jump up to the outside to try and catch up to Timothy Stubblefield so that he doesn't lose any momentum. If he needs at least somebody behind him and in front of him to be able to maintain. Well, you see the lap car up there. It's actually Chris Cabot who got the worst end of the whole deal of the back straightaway here a couple laps ago, and he's going to stay up high, which is the line the leaders are running here. Let's see what that does. Doesn't really affect it all too much. Everybody kind of plays nice as they catch the lap traffic. Most of the outside drifted down to the middle. They're kind of migrating back up to the very outside here off the corner now, but Warren Kalkeith still trying to make hay with James Kunkel right now. Chris Progar has made some good moves to find himself up into 4th.
He's done wonderful stuff to work his way up through the field, and that is one of the other throwbacks that we have in this race tonight. Chris Progar, one of the co-owners of this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, throwing it back to a scheme that I don't remember seeing for the longest time. This is in the old days of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and it's a Dodge Ram with Chad Chaffin's 2003 Dickies car. This is a very rare pull, but a great paint scheme that Progar is tributing to tonight at Talladega, and I guess the Dickies colors are making him pretty fast tonight. 4th place, already moving up, and may have some help as he swiggles to the inside, but will stay up high. Everyone is moved up to the Dale line at the top of the track.
That's a great find. Anytime you can find somebody who does a throwback that's all the more interesting and uncommon, it could really stand out, because you usually see the people that do their common throwbacks to, let's say, a Jeff Gordon Rainbow Warrior car, a Mellow Yellow paint scheme to Days of Thunder, any Dale throwback it can be included in there, really. Those are usually the common throwbacks you see at most throwback events, so anytime you find something completely different and all the more rare, I will say have at it.
You want to see another crazy pull?
Okay.
Car number 32, that's Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports, is Richard Swabley in that Toyota Camry on the inside. Good wrench.
Wow.
Kiss 2004, Kevin Harvick. That's a great car.
Wow. That is a great car. Wow.
And you know,
good for you, Richard Swabley.
It's not Kiss on the race car, it's Heavies. Or I don't know if there's another band on there. I think it may be Hemlock, the band that he actually represents. And he's represented before here in this.
Oh, we got a crash.
Oh, we do have trouble right in front of where Swabley is, and it's Warren Kyle Keith, who appeared to have been in the heart of it. He was running as high as 2nd on the inside lane. And something transpired with the Jurassic Park throwback of Warren Kyle Keith. And now he's all the way back in 13th.
He went out of line on the trial, trying to make a move on Cedric Hunter. Brandon Banks fills the gap up on the outside, and there might be some netcode here going into turn 1. Slight netcode, and that sends Banks sideways. Great save by both of them, but they were going to lose that lead draft.
Oh, that's going to be so tough for Banks and for Warren Kyle Keith. We know how 04 name has performed in the qualifying side of things, has qualified his car in the top 3 many occasions this inaugural DTH Cup Series season, and we'll have to trudge through with a top 15 run at the moment. He will miss out on stage points as we are 7 laps away. He's had a start inside the top 3 for every single race, and that does not include Daytona. 27th is where he rolled off the grid at the World Center of Racing, but ever since, he's had first, second, third, and third. He has yet to win a race this season, but he is outright the best qualifier. And now the Bobby Labonte, old throwback in the Pontiac Grand Prix. His Toyota Camry, though, will be lodged to the top 15. He'll have to try and get his way through with Banks right in front of him.
And now that we have 8 cars at the front of the field, as Kunkel and Holdcroft lost touch with the lead draft. They're still in stage points positions. They hold the last 2 positions, so as long as they don't get caught up by anybody else in this run, they'll gladly take some stage points.
And this basically leaves the top 9 or so confirmed for stage points, and make that 8 cars in this main group, trailed by the rookie Dusty Applin, who made a name for himself at Chicagoland many weeks ago in this season, and he'll put himself right on the outside of Robert A. Moyer Jr. That's the Category 5 Esports Toyota, going a lap down in 29th place. Well, basically all these guys, without a mistake or without some trouble that is not in their realm of area, they will be okay. They'll cross the line for the final 5 here in the first stage of this race from Talladega. Now, Stepien has won a stage or two in 2025. He already has 2 to his credit this year. But Kip Easley only has 1. And I believe that came the way of Daytona to start this year. And Easley will try to get one more, possibly if he can have Harlow and Progar help. But if you're in this top 10 situation running a Dale line, Francisco, is it even worth reaching out for the stage win right now? Or are you content running in this single file train knowing at least this spot is guaranteed if you stay where you're at?
I think the biggest question you ask yourself is who's the car directly behind you if you're planning on making a move. If it's somebody that you think would go with you. Oh, there's a crash on the back straightaway. Alex Muscarella and Richard Modric go for a spill.
And the Lowe's Chevrolet spins on the back straightaway. And, well, no guarantee for the top 8 anymore. Yellow flag flies for just the first time tonight. And despite some of the chaos we've seen, we've yet to find a yellow until now. And it's the 48 car who finds himself in trouble. So, you got to look at it here. This secondary pack, ton of cars. Brandon Banks is there on the outside. And I don't know, Francisco, whether there may have been some help or whether there was something that transpired in front, possibly a checkup. Muscarella tries to get on the outside of Swavely, and it's Modric who gets tagged from behind by Justin Hendry. And there is nowhere for Muscarella to go. Another look there, that Square D Chevrolet. Kenny Wallace throwback for Richard Modric gets turned by Hendry's UPS store Toyota. It's that bright yellow and that bright blue car right behind Zachary Hall. And it begins with this stack up right behind Tony Kivet. And 71 just gets hooked. And Muscarella, who looked up for some fresh air to cool down the race car and to get some momentum in track position, ends up getting turned, our first yellow thrown. And with that, the field will look to pit road for the first time tonight. And from race control, we'll get a better word on whether that is the official stage end.
Correct.
But for right now, points will be dealt Steven Stepien, unofficially his 3rd 2025 stage win.
Can confirm that's what they said. The stage will be ending here. So as they're running the current top 10 all the way back to Daniel Holdcroft, will get those elusive stage points under this caution flag, which now makes this second stage interesting, Kenneth, because of how early they're ending the stage and the caution for it is arriving. That does mean they cannot go this whole stage on fuel. And I will say it's interesting that they decided to call the stage that early. Usually these caution flags do not take up that many laps. I think by the time we'd get going here, we would have had enough time to maybe do 1 or even 2 laps before the official stage end would have been in. So interesting call by race control to just throw in the towel on it that early.
Yeah, we could have at least gone a lap or 2, but I mean, they will decide to throw those points out early, given the amount of laps that you will go pacing here at Talladega and to get the rest of the field together. So there is everyone off pit road, and no decision other than Stepien being the stage winner and now the winner off of the pit lane. Kip Easley, Harlow, Progar, and Erb, the rest of this top 5.
And there's numerous cars still sitting on pit road. A lot of them are getting some kind of damage repair. Remember, we did have plenty of incidents under the green flag that did not result in caution, so multiple drivers sitting in their pit stalls getting some damage repair, most notably Centric Hunter, who had that big front end and rear bumper damage from that lag push down the back straightaway, which caused the biggest non-yellow flag incident. There he sits in his pit stall, getting some damage repair. I believe he said he had about a minute or so from all that occurred. And you see Ross Harlow sitting there as well. There's Casey Knighton exiting pit road as well as Warren Keith. All these guys getting some damage repair and making sure they're all good to go for this next stage, because if you have that, especially if you have any kind of front end damage, even if it's no engine damage, it can really hurt your performance if you're not in a draft.
Yeah, and when you're leading the pack with a damaged race car, I mean, you chop off so many miles per hour on the straightaways that, I mean, the cars behind you will be just urging you to get forward, and they probably will just put you behind if they end up seeing fit. So the several cars down pit road will take their attempt at some damage repair. That does include Richard Modric and, of course, Alex Muscarella being involved in our most recent and only caution flag of the day. We have one driver in, and there was a mistake, Francisco, from Kip Easley. He'll lead a bunch of others in to top off on fuel right before the end of the stage, officially the lap marker of lap 35. But Easley, who actually didn't even get in his pit stall the first time, will have second time be the charm in a quick pit stop. He'll be out in a couple of seconds, and everyone follows through on a splash of fuel.
This is trying to stretch the fuel. This is exactly what they're doing. Not a bad idea, but I will say Colin Forster, interestingly, I'm not sure what's going on with his race car, if he has some kind of damage, but he is still sitting in his pit stall, and he actually lost a lap in the process. I'm not sure if this is him ending his race or what might be going on in the 99. He's actually just gotten rolling now, but he lost a lap on pit road there. Cedric Hunter back into the pit lane, getting some more damage repair. But seeing most of the field come back down pit road, not a shocker, trying to top off on fuel. We'll be going green for lap 34, which means we would have had a 2-lap dash if they would have let this played out, which I think would have been real interesting from our perspective to see how they would have handled a 2-lap dash for the stage.
Yeah, it would have been fun, but I guess we're just going to get stage 2 done a little bit earlier. We're going to start it a little bit quicker. We'll get our stage 1 winner in. Steven Stepien, you got a copy with us?
Kenneth, I do.
All right, Steven. Well, you had some good pace in the first stage tonight. You end up getting the stage W. What's that feel like?
It feels good, man. I just want to... we've been getting it done with stages all season. We just haven't been able to finish a race where I want to. Win is evading us, but hopefully we'll get it done here.
Well, you've got a strong car in stage 1. Hopefully the same in stage 2. And just want to say, gorgeous-looking Dale Jr. throwback. It looks phenomenal.
Oh yeah, this is one of my first diecast, one of my first 124 scales that I've ever owned. So, definitely had to pull this out tonight. I love it.
All right, Steven, best of luck on the restart.
Thank you, guys.
That's Steven Stepien, our stage 1 winner. He will lead the field back to green with Stephen Harlow, the Project Hopner Chevrolet, on the very outside. Chris Progar and Justin Erb, the TOW Racing Chevrolets, will follow suit in the second row. Look at only 5 cars. Make it 6 on the outside. Everyone who pitted on the very inside. Green flag waves, and technically stage 2 underway from Talladega. And a good start by Stepien. Progar matches the speed to the first corner. Harlow will try to get Erb to go with him. Now Progar searches up high. He wants the lead. Stepien the block and the outside with the momentum off turn 2.
Those are all teammates that are up on that outside, dropping the Hammah race team. They're getting formed up on the outside already on this restart. You see a huge single file line back behind the main leaders of the race, and those are everybody that decided to top off on fuel. They're now single file of the tail end of the longest line. Everybody's on the inside. Not many have jumped up to the outside, only a handful though, but look who's leading that bottom. Daytona winner Timothy Stubblefield with Justin Henry in tow.
Only led 1 lap in that Daytona race, and it was the final one, going to the checkered flag. The only Ford Mustang in the field of Stubblefield, trying to take his first lead away on a super speedway since that very victorious day to kick off the year. And Justin Hendry, who was right there for the taking of the white flag lap at Daytona, now second fiddle on this inside, trying to push the winner forward. And Hendry was sort of involved in that caution of the race with Alexander Muscarella, just barely got into Richard Modric, and obviously non-intentional move down the Alabama gang super stretch. But the UPS store Toyota Camry making some moves, and that is a proper Dale Jarrett throwback to back in the day. Usually a lot of drivers go with the paint scheme that, you know, is the usual UPS car, but I like this alternate look, the full yellow car from Justin Hendry's perspective, and the SKM store colors on this car specifically.
That's a great find there for Dale Jarrett, his UPS machine. We've seen Parker Bland run a different Dale Jarrett paint scheme, different to this one, which she has ran in her previous attempts in this series, and we hope to see her again soon with that wonderful UPS paint scheme. I've seen Ross Chastain have a throwback to a different UPS paint scheme than that, and I have that diecast actually, that Ross Chastain throwback. UPS has always made good paint schemes, much like FedEx has, particularly in their earlier stint with Denny Hamlin, rather than the more recent years up until last year. I would say those FedEx paint schemes with Denny Hamlin, when they had the alternate color schemes, those were some of the better ones, and that's what I use to incorporate into my own personal Celsius schemes rather than the same orange one you see out there on the racetrack all the time.
Yeah, it looks awesome. And UPS, one of the big sponsors of NASCAR for so many years. I mean, across Dale Jarrett, and you look at David Reagan, who carried UPS in those final years while they were there. Chris Progar, by the way, slings to the inside in turn 1, and while Stubblefield had the clean air and the race lead for about 2 or so seconds. Progar is there to snatch it away, and Chris Progar to the race lead for the first time from Talladega. But yeah, with Parker Bland using those UPS colors to her advantage to have a gorgeous paint scheme week in and week out. She usually has the scheme that usually references racing the UPS truck, which was a big campaign in those early 2000s days when Dale Jarrett was driving that UPS Ford Taurus at the time. So Chris Progar at the front, Justin Hendry in that UPS inspired paint scheme, third on the inside. And those guys on the very top, about 5 cars deep, trying to get Stepien to the front. And it's a mirror image of what we saw at the opening jump of this race. Everyone down low and those up high being a little braver.
Look at everybody on the back jump up to the high side. There's a checkup behind Kip Easley on the bottom. And that's why you see, I believe that was Lawson Peel and Jason Hastings work their way up to the top side to keep the momentum going. They're going to try to draft their way up to the back end of the line on the outside to keep the momentum going. There's Eric Schaefer to make it another DBR driver in there as well. Warren Kalkeith on the bottom, and Colin Forster, who lost a lap in the pit stops, trying to see if he can become the first car 1 lap down. He is racing the 25 of Chris Cabot, who's further up ahead. There you see the 25 on the left side of the right portion of your screen, and Colin Forster has to get in front of that 25 to get into the free pass position if a caution were to come out.
And Gabot's right in that spot where he is in the thick of things with the lead lap group, and that's something that on the super speedways we see play such a big role. Even if you are a car a lap or 2 down, if you're still out there and you find yourself in a pack, I mean, the draft is going to suck you back in, so you could play a role in what line gains momentum, and we've seen that time in and time out, what that does to the lead lap pack, whether it frustrates them a little bit or whether it gives them that upper edge to run a little bit better and take over top spots. And some good points. We'll see what Chris Cabot does in his influence. Meanwhile, from the inside lane, it's Sean Kalis, who was the last car on the outside about a lap or 2 ago, made the swing down to the bottom end of the 33 degrees of banking, and the SK Sim Racing Chevrolet will look to be another lead changer through these first 39. Stepien will fight back. He's got hella help on the outside lane, but Sean Kalis, with help from Hendry, looking for the top spot to the line and back to turn 1.
We were talking about Colin Forster about a minute ago, and he had a huge moment on the back straightaway, just about jumped into the wall. Check this out. There's the 31 and the 42. I think they see him with the run. They try to get up in front. That's a squeeze.
It's tough. And thankfully, Forster's able to get by as he remains on the outside lane and just hanging where he is on the pack. And I believe he was about in the middle of 3 wide or so, and that's where James Kunkel finds himself on the speedway. Former race leader who surged up to the front with help from Warren Kyle Keith. Now both of those Toyota Camrys are scrambling to find their place in the middle of this heavily congested pack. There's Forster down low, gets where Kip Easley's slipstream is at, and how about 3 wide for 11th?
And it's going to be interesting to see how aggressive some of these guys try to save fuel. Nobody's really saving fuel now. Probably not sure if they're expecting to go all the way to lap 70. I believe that would be at the end of lap 70 on the current fuel tank. It would be very close for everybody to do it, but I think everybody that's topped off has a better chance to get there. Here's a throwback for the 42 of James Kunkel, and that's the one he's running. I believe that's Casey Kane.
Yep, Casey Kane 2004 with the Dodge dealers, Mountain Dew Dodge. I don't know if it was a Dodge Charger, but it's one of the Dodge models back in the early 2000s before they fully switched to the Charger in the late
rookie
era
year as well
of Gen 4. Yeah, very early Casey Kane career before his success kicked in, and it's a gorgeous throwback for the likes of James Kunkel, who has already made the car look good on the track and has already given it some laps up front. He'll join Kip Easley right behind in the running for what is currently 12th and 11th place. Meanwhile, Steven Stepien is still in the fight with Sean Kalis. Auction up for the top spot, and for the first time all night long, Francisco, both lanes have enough numbers to push them forward.
Yeah, it took about 100 miles into this race to really see it come into true effect. You see the bottom right now get the advantage down the super stretch. We'll see what Stepien's able to do in the corners. Much like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Stepien has been in the protagonist position on the attack, been the aggressive one up at the front, has not really lost a lot of track position, and I don't expect it to be any other way. You see him continuing to lead the outside. Everybody seems to be able to work well with him, and that 88 is going to make a charge throughout the evening multiple times. Do not count out Stepien as the race goes on. But going back to that Casey Kane paint scheme, that's a great find. Normally if somebody does that Casey Kane throwback, it's usually to the, I believe it's the plain Dodge or even the Budweiser 9 car that he has ran on several occasions towards the latter portion of his Evernham career. But also, I wonder now that I saw a video a couple weeks ago, Casey Kane has acknowledged the existence of Casey Kane Friday. How do you feel about that?
Oh, no, there is a blown motor for the UPS car. Justin Hendry in the thick of things, right in traffic, bounces through the grass. And right as you were finishing up that point, the smoke came out from the back end of his Toyota Camry, and Justin Hendry is basically out of this race. 43 laps in the books.
Yeah, he had let go moments before it actually went up, and then right there, it goes away. You can hear it go, and great reaction, getting it all the way to the bottom, out of the racetrack. You see he slides through the grass for a little bit. Great car control to not let it spin to bring out a caution flag, but that's going to be race over for him.
And, you know, we worried that Cedric Hunter was in that position when the stack-up occurred entering Turn 3 with Ross Harlow and Chris Cabot, but because that was a lag push, it just gave them damage, but it did not hamper their overall engine performance. With Hendry, I think the car just got a little too hot right behind Kalis, was giving him a push and a half to the front, and you got to give credit for the positive momentum that Hendry was building up at the front of this field. And now Chris Progar will have to play the role that Hendry has been in for the last several laps on end to keep Kalis and that SK Sim Racing Chevrolet up front. It's been in the fight with Steven Steppen constantly and Stephen Harlow. Running 1-2 on the outside lane, and then that third car for TOW Racing, 6th place Justin Erb, and that's a Tony Stewart throwback for car number 20 tonight. That is a Tony Stewart throwback that you don't see quite often. That's the 25th anniversary Home Depot colors that he used to run with the Monte Carlo back in the early 2000s. So a fantastic find for Justin Erb, who's still trying to put a successful season together. And as he tries to push Harlow and Steppe into the top spot, so far not able to fully beat Kalis and Progar on the inside.
Charlie Byer would appreciate that throwback. Everybody who knows them knows he's a big Tony Stewart fan, especially the good old number 20 Home Depot paint scheme. Just thinking about the theme in my head every time I see that car on the racetrack. Look, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's a banger.
But it is. I think that picture that you used for the throwback, Kenneth, was that Las Vegas before the banking?
Let me look. I'm gonna try to find that again.
I believe it was.
So we'll get another look at it. This is right about here.
I think that's Vegas.
Is it?
Before they banking. Because that, you said what? That was 2005?
This paint scheme is 2004.
Okay, so yeah, that would make sense. That was before the banking at Las Vegas, which was incorporated, I believe, 2007 or 8.
Oh, okay, so not only we have a great paint scheme, we have an interesting perspective of the racetrack. It's sort of like when you look at old Homestead pictures and you almost kind of
that
forget
is so cursed.
that the first several years of Homestead's existence, it was in a rectangular form. That's what the track was initially built like, as a mini Indianapolis type of track. And then when they reverted it, or when they changed it to the oval look that you see today, it still had lower banking, and then they had to elevate the banking through the mid-2000s. So pretty cool look, not only for the race car, but the racetrack that it's on back in 2004. Otherwise, Justin Erb, though, running third. And finally, the outside has enough to beat those guys on the bottom and to clear them by at least 4 to 5 car lengths. And what a move to the inside. Cedric Hunter works his way to the front.
Got that front end repaired, and he's trying to make the move. Stempien thought about blocking. Does he still have the outside position? Yes, he does. So he'll continue to fight 3 wide. Warren Kyle Keith through the middle.
Warren Kyle Keith looking for some help. Does he find anyone with him? And it's yes. 2 Toyota Camrys, James Kunkel and Colin Forrester. Remember, Forrester's in the running for the lucky dog position at the next yellow flag wave. And the middle lane,
there's Cabot right
struggling,
there.
Choking on the middle lane for now. Stempien back to the front off turn 2.
And you mentioned Forrester battling for the free pass position. Chris Cabot is right there next to him. They're both racing each other right now.
And they're hoping for the next yellow, which at the moment will fly at around lap 75. So still a long way to go and more than 25 laps out that these guys have to deal with, or at least hope for another yellow to fly. For right now, Forrester has the lucky dog spot. Keith, Kunkel, and Forrester are trying to find their place, make that nearly 4 wide down the tri-oval, and Hunter falls back now to 7th. Clear control to the top side.
Forster might try to unlap himself the good old-fashioned way. He is 5th in line, but a lap down in the 27th position. And you see it's actually kind of broken up the top 5 cars away from Warren Kyle Keith, who's run 6, but it's gotten clear now. And the outside lane, definitely the preferred line at this point, as you have the top, I believe it's 18 or so, or 20 or so that are position-wise. You see the 28 of Casey Knighton off the pace there on the bottom, letting most of the field through. But most of the field is still together. You have to go all the way back to Robert A. Moyer Jr. with Alex Muscarello. Those guys are 40 seconds off the lead. They could go a lap down here soon. Richard Modric is running in 25th right now. He's going to get lapped here in about 2 or 3 laps.
And this is the heap of fighting that's going on in the mid-pack. We've talked about Drinkin' Bros Racing and their decision to lag back for the first opening segment of this race. Well, that's typical of Drinkin' Bros Racing. Often at these larger super speedways, their strategy always is to hang back, run in the mid-pack, or maybe at the tail end of a certain group, and just wait for the moment to strike, and that's when they turn on the jets and make their moves. That's what helped Kip easily get to the front late in the going at Daytona. That's what helped Lawson Peel grab second away from the winner, Timothy Stubblefield. And for Brandon Banks, Jason Hastings, Tony Kibbett, all of those Drinkin' Bros Racing Chevrolets usually find their way in at the end, but they maintain patience at the front. But all the while, these guys at the head of the field, Stempian, Harlow, Erb, Applin, and Hunter, continue to run through this top 5 despite the efforts from Warren Kyle Keith and James Kunkel and Sean Kalis. No avail. Things will stay single file now through the top 10. But I guess this may help Francisco, everybody in that second pack, because they were watching these guys battle for a little bit. You see a tiny bit more organization, and with the best efforts by the Toyotas down low, it continues to woe down these guys on the very outside. So Richard Swavely, who currently holds on to spot number 12 on the racetrack, may have some headway with Easley and company to support after some laps of getting organized.
And Colin Forster just about put Warren Kyle Keith into the outside wall further up, trying to keep that place in line. He'll tuck back in, but now Kalis has a run on him, and he's lost the position to Chris Cabot for the free pass. So that's still going on, and now that line has caught him. You see it's kind of split up the back end of the pack, but Forster now all good to go. That's how you can tell, even though it's the lead pack and there's racing for the lead lap, the racing to get the free pass is well underway. Now they're nose to tail the 25 and the 99.
So they're getting there, and the good news for them is that they can make a move. We still have a long way to go until the next stage is over, so no fight for points as we see it. The onboard look from Ross Harlow's Chevrolet, the bounce back that he's had to endure tonight, along with Cedric Hunter picking up that early race damage at this very part of the racetrack, turn 3, and now with a healed Chevrolet, just trying to get back into things as he has stepped into 12. Steven Stempian leads this race, which will lead us into a very special lap for our DTH Cup Series inaugural season. Our lap in tribute of a fallen friend, Dave Bush, and we will honor this lap in a tribute of silence to a good friend of Stempian and the league. Dave Bush always in our thoughts, along with his family. Man that I call the Celebration of Life race for, with a bunch of his friends in the sim racing community. Stempian won that race. It was Cup Cars at Michigan International Speedway at the time, and Dave Bush did lose his battle, unfortunately. So throughout the entire season, for those who are just tuning in, tonight lap 53 is our special tribute lap to take a moment of silence in honor of him and to send our condolences, our positive thoughts, and our prayers to him and his family. So Steven Stempian will lead lap number 53 in very iconic fashion. Harlow, Erb, Applin, and Hunter, your current top 5. Hunter swung up high to try to pick up his teammate Robert A. Moyer Jr., and instead that tracks him back a couple of car lengths. It will back everybody up, and for the Lucky Dog battle, which has been just as compelling as the lead fight, Colin Forrester has helped Warren Kyle Keith and James Kunkel move into the top 5, and now they're going to flush down the rookie Dusty Applin off turn 2.
Chris Cabot has done a good job of keeping up with Forrester throughout the entirety of this run, so I mean it's kept everybody in check, but now you toss in the 18 Robert A. Moyer Jr., who's going to try and battle to be the first car one lap down as well, all three of them within decent proximity, and now that the front is single file once again, Forrester's in a good enough spot if the yellow flag does wave. When they cross the line, it'll be 15 laps to go to this stage, and it's going to be interesting to see what their fuel situation is. It's going to be very tight, and I've not seen any evidence that would suggest any fuel saving has gone on.
It's a unique situation for Colin Forrester, and a unique situation on the super speedways, because at short tracks, intermediate tracks, road courses, you name it, if you're a lapped car, chances are you cannot unlap yourself right before a stage comes out unless you put on a strategy, some fresh set of Goodyear Eagles to get on the way and be faster than the competition if you don't have raw pace. But because on super speedways, almost everybody is on a level playing field, you can unlap yourself right before that caution comes out and put yourself in a situation to join the lead pack when the green flag raises once again. So Forrester in the lucky dog spot as he runs position-wise 23rd with a lot more other drivers now a lap down or more to get down into the fight. There is
We
one
got some pit stops further back.
That's Dusty Applin. It appears all by himself.
It's DBR.
He'll have some help.
All of DBR has made their way onto pit road, so I'm pretty sure they're throwing in the white flag on being able to try to stretch the fuel. As you see, basically all of Drinking Bros Racing has made their way into the pit lane, and oh, the 4 is going to miss his stall.
Oh, and he just had to wiggle the car sideways. The smoke came out from under the Chevrolet.
Well, that's going to kill it.
And that's going to be a ton of lost time, and that is a no-no on the super speedways. You cannot make a mistake like that under green flag stops. Chances are you'll be left for dust with the rest of the pack that come out. Brandon Banks will lead the group off pit road, while on the left side of your screen you watch the battle for the lead. Currently uncontested with Steven Stemping at the front. And are you surprised, Francis, to see these pit stops now?
I won't say I'm surprised. It was a very close touch-and-go call on being able to make it. This would allow them to not have to worry about fuel saving, and they get the pit stop done, which would protect them against the yellow flag. But that was not good execution all around, because now they're all spread out. You have Brandon Banks and Tony Kivett about a second ahead of Schaefer and Kip Easley, as well as the 17 of Craig Parks. But then you have to go back a good bit before you get to the single car of Dusty Applin and then Jason Hastings all the way back. So they're pretty spread out, so that was not exactly an efficient pit stop. That's not going to warrant anybody else into thinking, man, I have to make a pit stop right now, because they bought themselves some time.
And there's a look at Jason Hastings, number 4, as he is dead in the water. The lead pack going around. Hastings going a lap down now. He will lose out on the fight for the Lucky Dog. As we mentioned, Colin Forrester has maintained control, being that 4th car on the outside lane behind Justin Erb. So Hastings will have a bit more work cut out for him. Thankfully, he may be able to put himself right in the back end of this main single file pack. He will. So good news for Hastings. He's not entirely out of this thing yet, and he could still fight for the Lucky Dog spot as long as he stays in contention with the pack in front of him. So with everyone running 10th on back in a secondary group, that leaves about 15 or so cars at the tail end or the beginning of this field that have yet to come down, with about 15 laps to go in stage number 2 to go, or I believe, yes, about 15 laps
11.
to go, or 11 now this time.
Yeah, we're racing to the end of lap 70 for the second stage, and most of these guys, if you look at their fuel run, most of them have been out there for about going on 29 laps now, so it's close to 40. At Daytona, you could think 40 would be fine, but Talladega, that extra distance adds up quite significantly, and that Drinking Bros Racing crew has caught up, and I believe they took 4 tires under their pit stop because they lost so much time. Just comparing to, and there are guys from this lead draft that are pitting. I'm hearing it in the race chat right now, so I'm not sure who it was, but you could see some pit stops here off of turn 4. We'll keep an eye out.
Here's a look at Warren Kyle Keith, who was right behind Forrester's lap Toyota and fell back for some reason. Now Cedric Hunter and company will go to the inside.
There they go.
But here's the ploy. Leaders on pit road on this lap. It's Stepien versus Harlow on the run to the brakes and to the yellow cone. And it will be basically even on the run to pit road between the two Chevrolets, with Lawson Peel leading out front. He's got one car in front. That's his teammate Jason Hastings, who will unlap himself via that move. And with Colin Forster joining the leaders on pit road, it will give an interesting proposition to the group.
Oh, he missed it a little bit.
Shoots the pit stall, and who wins the race off pit road from the lead main?
Looks like a lot of fuel only compared to what DBR did, and Forrester keeps his spot relative to the, I believe, the 25. And you see just a little bit more spread out, but there's so many more cars here that they should bunch up with relative ease. Lawson Peel, the only car yet to pit. I believe Cedric Hunter hasn't as well. Or actually, no, he has. He's actually a part of the cars exiting pit road now. Lawson Peel continues to stay out. Not sure if this is him attempting to go all the way. He was one of those cars that did top off at the end of the most recent caution flag. That he is now starting his 30th lap of the stint. So if Lawson Peel continues to draft with Jason Hastings, he has 30 seconds back to Cedric Hunter, and that's not impossible considering he's been in the draft the whole time. Can he actually make it work is the question.
Yeah, it's a big point for these guys if they need to put on a distinct run in the final 8 of this second stage. And now that the entire field is all across this speedway, what's going to happen now with everyone all over the place, and how interesting will that make this fight for the stage win? Because Lawson Peel has already won a stage or two in 2025, despite not qualifying for almost every single race this year. He's already won 3, his most recent coming the race right before New Hampshire at the virtual Road America circuit on the road course side of things. But remember the second place finish that came his way at Daytona to kick off the year. He's by himself with his teammate, as Cedric Hunter maintains second, Stepien right behind in third, then a trio of cars behind, Herb, Harlow, and Forrester, followed by Warren Kyle Keith in P6. And it's in a hornet's nest for some parts of the field. Francisco, you got to look all across the speedway, and you will barely see a foreign pack with more than at least 3 or 4 cars.
That's what happens when you have your pit stops under green flag, different strategies, and of course, your different approaches entering and exiting pit road. That's really where you can lose time to a group. Here's a group right now led by Zachary Hall and Richard Swavely running P7 and P8. They're going to catch the 78 of Warren Kyle Keith, who's just barely in front of them after losing touch to the likes of Stephen Harlow and Justin Erb and Steven Stepien, who are nose to tail in their own right further up ahead on the left side of the screen with a couple lappers mixed in there. There's Warren Kyle Keith now getting passed by Zachary Hall. This group overall is about 4 seconds behind the left side of the screen. And of course, since Lawson Peel has yet to bring it down pit road, this is all technically still a battle for second.
And with that, you ask the question, when does Lawson come down pit road? Is there a moment that he decides pit road will be his turn for the taking, and Cedric Hunter will be right there waiting with him to grab what would be his 3rd stage win of the year? We've seen Hunter go on a stretch of very good finishes, and for 3 weeks in a row didn't finish a race outside of the top 5. And then it all changed at New Hampshire, where he came in 25th after a struggle of a race, and he was involved in one of those incidents that caught on to Steven Stepien midway through, where he got right to the back bumper, was in the midst of things, and got sent hard into the outside wall head on, and that car was destroyed from there. Could not pick himself back up for a decent finishing position. But tonight could be the change for Category 5 Esports, still searching for win number 1, Francisco, despite their many second-place finishes, not only from Hunter, but from his teammate, Zachary Hall.
Yeah, Zachary Hall has been the one who's been in second place a lot very recently and has put in some good efforts and gotten some great results, just been short of the glory. And it's usually been to either Lawson Peel or somebody from Drinking Bros Racing. So eventually it's going to build into frustration of just not being able to get there despite it being good results. But you just picture it soon enough. These Category 5 esports drivers are going to find a way to win a race here. Toyota, the only manufacturer not to win a race, and that's with Timothy Stubblefield being the only Ford to race.
You know, it's interesting to think about that, because you're thinking, oh, well, there are a lot of Toyotas in this field, and you'd think they probably get a race win, but they just haven't found the success quite yet. So it's still all on Cedric Hunter and some of the other Toyota-made drivers to find some life. And there's the onboard from Lawson Peel.
And I find this interesting, Kenneth. Look at the RPMs on that number 9 machine. Look how low they are compared to normal race speeds. He has a couple of teammates in front of him. They're helping him save fuel. He has 14 seconds back to Cedric Hunter, approaching 4 laps to go. Lawson Peel is trying to win the stage by saving fuel.
And probably the first time we've seen that happen from Peel himself in this stretch of the race. And the good news is that he has help. At least Dusty Applin and Jason Hastings are there, and it's even better that Hastings is the teammate of Peel's DBR Chevrolet, so thankfully he can be in communications with Hastings, and in these final few laps, while trying to stretch it out until lap number 70, constantly talk with him and tell him, hey, this is what I need from you. If you can back off and help me stay in the slipstream, that would help a lot, instead of these two just pulling away from Peel's saving car. But for right now, he maintains a 13.2 second advantage over this man right here, Cedric Hunter, in a pack of 5. With Stempian, Herb, Harlow, and then the lapped car of Colin Forrester. And then from 6 on back, and that's where things start to get a little added on with Zachary Hall, Brandon Banks, Kip Easley, Craig Parks, many of these guys Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets that put forth that strategy earlier on in this race. With 3 to go in stage 1.
Well, now we just got the update in the race chat as well. They advised everybody it's actually 75, so I'm not too sure which laps the stages are. It appears that from time to time they change, or we're unsure of it. Thought I heard 70 earlier. Now heard it through the voice chat. It is 75.
Well, good news is that we're still on this storyline anyway, but it does add on to the tally that Lawson has to save, and there is maybe.
Well, he's gonna pit this time.
Yeah, he's falling back from these two in front. So either he's deciding his strategy is done for, or he's just gonna pick back up on what the two are doing in front of him as they come off turn 4. No look to pit road, not even a side eye for the 3-time winner this year.
Well, he can't make it with the extra 5 laps. If he had to go at least another 2 laps, then he definitely stands a chance to do it. But he's been out there on the racetrack for 37 laps now. You toss in another 5 or 6 laps, that's just too much for the fuel tank to be able to handle here. Even with the help he's had and how slow he's going. He's got 10 seconds to Cedric Hunter. I think he has a good enough pace to be able to keep going and probably stay in the lead. I just don't think there's enough juice in that tank to be able to keep him out front for that for the remaining laps, as we'll cross the line to hit 6 laps to go.
Yeah, I don't know, Francisco, if Peel even comes down pit road at this juncture, whether it's going to even keep him ahead of this secondary pack when he comes out of pit road. I think this group may be able to catch up, and with the lap times that Peel's saving, he's a second or more faster, or slower rather, than everyone second on back. Was a 51.4 as he crossed the line. Last lap for Hunter and company was in the 50.2 second bracket. So they're inching forward at a very solid pace. It's now 9.5 seconds and closing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's expected when you have fuel mileage, that there's going to be a significant pace difference. But I would say the other part is I think Lawson Peel's safe from being able to go a lap down. Normally you can fit here behind the leaders and still come out on the lead lap, but considering Peel has that gap and the likelihood of him taking fuel only since the stage will end, and then that's when he can take his tires and make his longer pit stop to stay on the lead lap assuredly. Whenever the 9 car does decide to bring it down pit lane, it'll be for minimum fuel to get to the stage, and then from there do what he has to do to hold on at the back. So he's probably going to continue to race in the back of the lead draft and try to hold out to the end of the race. This was very clearly an attempt to try to win the stage and gamble on an opportunity to win the stage without having to deal with, well, the pack.
Well, remember, I mean, we were in this situation with a more intense pit road strategic call because we started stage 2 earlier than we anticipated. That yellow came out in the waning laps of the opening stage. Race control decided, hey, we're going to call the stage, give out the points now, and we're going to start stage 2 a little earlier. So they got a head start, which, for most races in the season, if you go green to the end of a stage lap, you have a couple of laps to come down pit road, save a bit of fuel, top off, whatever it may be. In the span of 2 to 3 laps, that you have of downtime behind the pace car to get yourself mentally ready for the second stage. But because we had that early yellow and because we kicked off stage 2 earlier than anticipated, these guys were throwing a curveball, Francisco. They had no idea they would be in this situation strategically wise, at least this desperately. And now Lawson Peel, who is the most confirmed driver to the playoffs early in this regular season, is throwing it out there for a gamble. And now his teammate Eric Schaefer will join the pack to make it 4 deep.
All Reliable is coming here to really help out Lawson Peel make this strategy work. He's continuing to run about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds slower than the rest of the leaders. At the rate they're going, they could get there on the final lap of the stage. So how much fuel does Lawson Peel still have inside his 9 car, and at what point does he decide, I'm either going to get caught and I need to go, or does he throw in the towel and decide, I need to make it to the stage end, even if I don't get the stage win, because it's only 4 cars that he'll get passed by: Cedric Hunter, Steven Stempian, Justin Erb, and Stephen Harlow, because he has an additional, I think that's 7 or 8 seconds back to currently 6th place Zachary Hall. So even if he doesn't hold off Hunter, he can still get top 5 stage points if he doesn't run out of fuel.
And at the juncture of the season, stage points or no stage points, Peel is right now in a great spot. He's already won a stage or 2. He's been in the space where he can win a couple of races to his credit. And Peel is not the most prolific super speedway racer on the schedule. You find his strength to be those 1.5 miles, those harder to drive tracks on the schedule. But this may be a shining light for Peel's career in 2025 with this inaugural drop in the Hammah Cup Series. 2 laps to go in the stage. Pits are closed, or at least they're open for now, but Lawson Peel comes in right when they are closing, and Cedric Hunter will take the race lead. Final 2 in the second stage.
Okay, so I'm just hearing it now in the voice chat that it was when Peel crossed the line that it would have closed the stage. So he made it onto pit road with an open pit road before it officially closed. Right now it is closed. So Peel, picking up into the last opportunity to do so, he put the tires on, he got as much fuel as he could, and he's off and away now. So it just was not going to be enough for him to go all the way through this stage on the tank of fuel that he had for the 9 car. But I mean, he tried. You can't definitely say he didn't try.
Yeah, give him credit. I mean, the only thing I won't give him credit for is not running a throwback scheme tonight. He's still in the same Napa auto.
What do you mean? It is a throwback to last year.
Man, we don't count that. We're talking 2000 to 2004. If we're throwing it back to 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I don't know. That's not a throwback. But give Peel the credit for trying the strategy. Final lap in stage 2, and there are only 4 cars in the running for it. Hunter, Stempian, Erb, and Stephen Harlow. That trailing white and orange Chevrolet and the Brett Bodine throwback will take their lap around Dusty Applin and Jason Hastings. Now here swings Stempian, and he's got all the help with him. There is no answer that Hunter can provide on the Alabama Gang super stretch, but there may be a last life in them. So much space to turns 3 and 4.
And we have a battle for the final positions in the stage as well between Tony Kivitt, Richard Swavely. So we got multiple battles coming to the line.
Stempian gets around Applin. Does Irv unleash a move off the tri-oval? The answer for now is no. Stage winner here from Talladega, Steven Stempian.
And to the line, Craig Parks is going to hold off Tony Kivitt to hang on for the final stage point position. And after all the work Colin Forster's done, Dusty Applin getting lapped there at the very end gives him the free pass position, running in 19th. Hastings, Schaefer, Forster, all going to stay 1 lap down.
He's been on the back foot all night long. Forrester was dead last in the opening stint of this race, and he will get a chance to join the lead pack for some points now at the end of it in his debut. As Steven Stempian will sweep both stages from Talladega. He's had a strong night. Justin Erb making the move with him off of turn 2, and there was nothing that Cedric Hunter could do to form a response there. Harlow had been the tertiary car to go through, but he fell back off Erb's back bumper, tried to lay back and let Hunter give him the push to get them back within reaching distance, but as the top 2 were crossing some lap traffic, and nothing that Hunter and Harlow could do, but they will get 3rd and 4th at the end of the stage. Kip Beasley will wrap up the top 5. Richard Swavely gets Heavy Metal Jesus Motorsports a top 6 for some stage points. Warren Kyle Keith back and forth through this night's action, but he's 7th. Craig Parks, Tony Kivitt, and then Ross Harlow grabbing that final stage point as we look at it from the running in order right now. They will pick up the iRacing official pace car, but what a stage, Francisco. Not from the racing side of things, which we saw on stage 1, but from the strategy side of things. The way that Lawson stayed out as long as he did, then came down with 2 laps to go, ends up 18th in this stage, and then for those 4, just making the move at the end. Great stuff on the strategy side, but yeah, a long way to go now, because 50 laps to go until the end of the race means we'll see more pit stops.
Yeah, for a track where we see pack racing, Kenneth, you usually see the action at one particular spot on the racetrack. You can't say that about stage 2 there. We had action everywhere on the racetrack, which is not a typical description of Talladega. Usually everything is concentrated. Now we have some pit stops here, and I expect to see several guys also decide to come in and top off. Not so much to stretch the field to get to the end, especially if we go green like we have for most of the evening, but rather to make that green flag pit stop all that much shorter.
All right, so here is a money stop to get you track position in the final stage of the race. Everybody's in, and we have seen 4 tire calls before, so it will be some tire calls for the front pack. Everyone lifting up the right side of the race car, potentially left side. Will it be 2 or more? It will be 4 tires. Out first is Stephen Harlow, run off of pit road. And it's Steven Stempien. Look at the battle for seconds. Justin Erb and Harlow toe-to-toe, and Harlow wins the battle. Oh, Erb does.
That was real close there coming off pit road, and let's see if we can find an angle to show you just how close it was. But Kenneth, also very importantly, Cedric Hunter has stayed out under this caution flag, so that means that he'll actually be the race leader.
And it says he pitted 2 laps ago, so potentially pitting right before this stage came to a close, or at least in a lap before. Not entirely sure, but he will be the race leader. And Stempien right behind him. We'll see if we can get a better look at the fight off of pit road for a second. But in the meantime, we'll talk in with Steven Stempien, now the stage winner for the 2nd time tonight. Steven, you got a copy?
Yeah, that's good to see you again. Well, talk to you again.
All right. Well, it hasn't been that long. Stage 1 closed. You got that one. Stage 2 is over. You get this one as well. Talk about how strong this car has been all night and what you learned most throughout the initial run of green flag stops.
Well, being on the high line is definitely dominant right now. I feel like, I don't know if they changed something with the update here, but there's nothing, the low line, I just feel like the arrow is just not working like it has been in the past. So, I mean, I feel like all the momentum's high, no matter what type of run that you try to get with the low line, it just doesn't work. Even sticking behind Cedric that whole time, it just felt bogged down. I don't know, different, a little different, but we're looking good, man. 2 stage wins, and hopefully we'll get this MLB All-Star game in Victory Lane for the first time this season.
You have some wood to knock on?
Yeah, I know, right? I got it right there.
All right, well, you've got a ton of points to your credit now tonight. Should give you a good points-paying effort, regardless of how this one ends in the final stage. But, you know, we talked about how Stage 2 got underway a little earlier than everyone anticipated, and I think it kind of threw everyone out for a bit of a loop, trying to figure out what the strategy was going to be like for the end. You see Lawson stay out as long as he did, and you end up on the strategy that wins out. But in these final 50 or so for the final stage, what do you try and think about blueprint-wise for the strategy?
Just keep me out front. Track position's key right now. Ross was saying on the team comms that he was struggling in the back, just trying to make moves and pass people. It just wasn't happening for him. So track position's key. Nail the pit stops if we have a green flag pit stop. And, you know, that stage that happened, that first stage, I just made the call because I knew we were going to have, it was going to be close on the second stage. So I wanted to give the guys some green flag pit stops. So that's why I made the call. But we're looking forward to the rest of this race. Hopefully I talk to you guys here in a little bit. Hasn't been a good start to the season, but we gotta get one.
But it's been a good start here tonight from Dega, entering the final stage. Congratulations on the stage sweep tonight from Talladega, and Steven, best of luck. Hopefully we'll be talking to you in Victory Lane.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it, guys.
That's Steven Stempien, driver of his number 88 Chevrolet, and that beautiful Dale Earnhardt Jr. throwback, and he will command this field back to the point with the Tony Stewart throwback on the outside of Justin Erb, Stephen Harlow, barely short of second place right out of pit road. And as we promised you, that is the fight off pit lane. You know, when we talk about photo finishes, I think I'm just going to say it. We need a pit road photo finish compilation somewhere out there from what we've seen across this league.
This league alone.
And 4 wide. It's been great. But hopefully we'll get a photo finish here from Dega.
I will do my part in trying to get cameras for that.
We're going to probably get a good angle from that cone. Maybe the POV as he watches the great fights off of the pit lane. Still some pit stops left to go, entering our final stage from our second super speedway race of the season. And once again, the Chevrolets are in control. Stempien and Herb will lead the field through the restart zone. Once again, green flag in the air from stage number 2 at lap 80. Let's crank it up on the KBueno Racing Network. Oh no, and there's a spinner. Steven Stempien is around at the front of the field, and he catches some others with them off of turn 4. And the stage sweeper gets swept off of his feet off the final corner from Stephen Harlow's front bumper.
On the front end has damage.
Bad luck ensues for the Methuen, Massachusetts native.
And we were just talking about it, not jinxing it, and right there, we'll have to get a look here and see exactly what caused this. I'm not too sure, Kenneth, but looks like in 3 and 4 he just kind of goes up. I'm not sure if he was thinking about moving up to the outside, and Harlow really didn't do anything incorrect there. He just kind of was following Steven Stempien like he's done for most of the night. Banks gets a piece of AC Forcer wiggling his way through on there, and Stempien doesn't have too much damage, it would appear, but has the front end damage, and you see the replay here from his rear end. You're going to see exactly that. The 11 is just going to follow him up the racetrack. I guess they were trying to move up, and Stempien went over the voice chat and said that that was him. That was all on his own doing, not the 11, rather himself.
And Harlow was just trying to follow in the tracks of Stempien, giving him the push, and from there, you can't really see it, but from the overhead shot, it tells you a better part of the story. The curved rear bumpers on these next-gen cars have no mercy when you align in an awkward way. And as Stempien travels up the racetrack, I mean, Harlow's pushing upwards, up the banking, so it slides the car to the left end of the speedway. And then Stempien just goes for the slide in the attempt to save it. Brandon Banks is there to make contact, and thankfully no one else found any part of Stempien's Chevrolet. But for the first time all night, Stempien is in peril, and he will join a heap of race cars down pit road, many of them to top off. Stempien and Brandon Banks going to be the only duo that are coming in for some damage repair.
I will say, Kenneth, the timing of this caution is actually very interesting because everybody who pits now, it looks like there was some trouble on pit road. We'll try and get a look at that soon. Here's another replay from the onboard of the 11, and that's exactly what happened there. You see him all of a sudden break away from Stempien, and then all of a sudden hits him on the left side of the very center portion of the bumper, and that's what sent him spinning. But what I was saying is that the timing of this caution, interesting, because if you top off here, you can employ the Lawson Peel strategy of not having to pit in this final stage. Every caution that comes out could be beneficial, so expect, and we saw a lot of guys make their way on the pit road, including Lawson Peel. So everybody who pitted has a chance of being able to make it. Everybody that did not pit, I think they're still flirting with magic on being able to make it. Well, I'll try my best to see what happened on pit road. There was a couple of cars stopped.
That's at least, what, a lap or two? That could be the difference here at the end. And it's Stephen Harlow, though, at the front, with that contact made from Stempien's rear bumper. And I'm sure Harlow probably feels bad about that. Was just trying to follow Stempien up the track, and unfortunately sends him spinning off of turn 4. Herb and Stubblefield will occupy the top 3. Francisco, I think you do have what happened on pit road. Cedric Hunter, who did find some bad luck entering turn 3, got himself back in the call. And unfortunately, something happened, a bit of drama to damage race cars.
There's Peel exiting pit road. exiting pit road. Kunkel misses a stall, and there you see the chain reaction between KBueno and Hunter.
Oh, no, and that for Hunter there, when we talk about that front-end damage that he picked up on the straightaway entering turn 3, the damage picked up on pit road might have been worse. He is able to fix it, but that is a long time spent in his box at over 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Yeah.
The Canadian has to spend in there for Category 5 Esports, and it's Chris KBueno who's just checking up for the slow car in front. You know, not often do we talk about pit road scuffles, but Francisco, you and I saw in live timing Josh Berry and Joey Logano get spun on pit road, had to enter their stalls backwards. There is still danger out there, even when you are under pit road speed limit, and Hunter sends a whale of a shot to the back end of Chris KBueno's Toyota. Did not see that coming.
Did not at all, and you can see it just barely up ahead. There's Peel exiting. The 42 was going into his stall, almost misses it, and checks up in the fast lane. And then the 25 and 45 have nowhere to go, just run into the back of each other, giving significant damage to one another. Hunter back down pit road to get some more damage, and you mentioned it there. We did see Josh Berry and Joe Logano backwards on pit road. They drove it backwards into their stalls to continue with the service that they had already done. It was like 4 wide almost exiting pit road. They bounced off one another as somebody else was exiting, and we weren't expecting that. I was too busy, I think, recording a Kyle Busch pit stop, and then everybody is reacting immediately. I look over to the right and I see 2 Fords sitting backwards on pit road. I've seen 1 car backwards on pit road there several years, including Truex and I think Buescher last year and in an Xfinity race before. But for you, that was the first time you've seen any cars backwards, and it's 2.
Yeah, and for the situation on pit road, to compare it to what we just saw with Hunter and Chris KBueno, it's a very precarious situation when you're trying to find your stall and you're trying to slow down, see where your pit box is at. All of a sudden, you get a car that comes right off pit road in front of you, and if they're, you know, still getting up to speed, you're already in cruise control at the pit road speed limit. You will have to slow the car down, and that's exactly what transpired. Just the back
and that was in the fast lane.
Yeah, around the right side. What you see a lot of cars go to feint to the left to find their pit box and just be out of the way of the others. When you're on that right lane, contact is still permitted, so you can make contact with other drivers and find yourself either spinning, or in the case of Cedric Hunter, just hitting square the back bumper of Chris KBueno's Toyota, which, for what it's worth and all intents and purposes, does not hurt KBueno. He will restart this race on the inside of about row 5, and he will kick off from 8th place, as Stephen Harlow and Justin Erb will lead a long train of cars back to the green flag at lap 84. Erb matches the speed of Harlow in the Chevrolet's match pace entering turn 1.
You can see the long line of cars that restarted on the inside, and that's how many cars came in to top off on fuel to ensure themselves a chance to get to the end. Muscarella with a destroyed front end, 2 laps down in this race, is restarting close to the front, and you see almost everybody's going to try to duck away from him. Doesn't want to be stuck behind that car like they were with Richard Motrich at the start of the second stage, and it caused most of the second pack to lose over a second before catching up. But Muscarella hanging on tough right now, even though he is 2 laps down, and there you see the battle at the front. Stephen Harlow and Daytona winner Timothy Stubblefield leading the bottom.
And second on the inside lane, that Ross Harlow car, the winner from New Hampshire, about 2 weeks ago, nabbed the top 5 in our only other super speedway race at Daytona, and that was after being involved in several accidents. But after taking part in the disastrously consequential stack-up entering turn 3 with Chris KBueno and Cedric Hunter, it's been a while for Harlow to get back to the front, and here he goes, up high to follow his brother up the speedway. And Harlow will take away the top 2 on the outside. Not enough to beat Stubblefield off turn 2.
It's the Harlow and Harlow show there on the outside, trying to work together to beat the 94 that's on the inside lane. And you look a little bit further back on that outside, it's Steven Stempian running in the 10th position. He's not out of it yet. He got the damage repair done. The car might not be as good as it was before the damage, but it's certainly still competitive enough.
Stempian spent a minute and a half and 7 seconds more on pit road just to fix what was damaged on that Chevrolet. And he sits with his DTH teammate and Alex Muscarella behind him, just inside of the top 10. There's a look at Timothy Stubblefield as he runs this race up front. Remember, we talked about the solo lap lead from Daytona. He has already doubled it and more. Here from Talladega, the inside shoots ahead off of turn 2. Progar, DeBow, and Swingley clear the pack. Look at the bump from Progar, and Stubblefield stays up front, but here comes the outside, charging for the lead.
And a little bit further back, Tony Kivett had lost the lead draft with the second group, but they're slowly catching up to Mascarella on the outside. So Kivett might try to make the move here as they reincorporate the second group with the first one. And on the back straightaway in 3 and 4, you see the outside power back by the 94. And there you see a little bit further back, there's the move being made by Tony Kivett.
A sea of DBR Chevrolets at the back end of this group will decide whether they join Stubblefield's brigade or whether they want to stay with the momentum up high. So far, it's Ross Harlow leading this deal at lap 87 and his brother to give support. First time we've seen that happen all race long between both of the Harlows, and Ross, who had a pair of outside top 15 finishes in week 2 and week 3, bounced back with 3 consecutive top 10 finishes, 2 of them podiums, and then the 1 race victory right after that at Loudon, New Hampshire. Harlow looking to become the first driver this season to go back-to-back. Even Lawson Field, the 3-time winner, has yet to accomplish a feat. Right now he's got to deal with the heavy pressure on the inside. Stubblefield with a bit more assistance to the bottom, and now here swings Stempian. Middle lane to make it 3 wide through the top 10.
And a little bit further back behind Steven Stempian is the 99 of Colin Forster back on the lead lap. He's looking to be aggressive to get to the front.
He's going to try and side drive to get his way through, and now it's Warren Kyle Keith, the St. Augustine, Florida native. And the employee at Discount Tire will try to wheel his way.
There we go. There's the 3x3 we know about this place.
And the wide lanes offer that opportunity. It's only 5 cars on the top lane. We've yet to see the middle find some success, but like Steven Stempian said, Harlow had chirped earlier in this race talking about how hard it is to pass, even though it's a super speedway and you're packed in at 2x2, and now at the moment 3x3, but it is not hampering Warren Kyle Keith's momentum off turn 4. He beats Stubblefield on the inside lane. Next challenge is get through the 2 Harlows at the front of the field. Back to turn 1.
I'll tell you what, Kenneth, the day that iRacing updates the spotter package to include 4 wide in the spotter calls is the day we see 4 wide become more common at Talladega.
Yeah, drivers will be a little more comfortable. We've yet to see it tonight, and if we have, it's been rather faint and with a ton of opacity, or lack of opacity, if you will. And Stempian will merge down low. Doesn't want any piece of Warren Kyle Keith, but who does? The Casey Kane throwback. James Kunkel has been working hand in hand with the fellow Toyota all race long, and they have basically been attached at the hip when you think about their moves through the middle lane. Now Warren Kyle Keith with the momentum slides down low. He'll take the spot in front of Stempian, and once again, we are matched 2x2, but still nobody getting past Ross Harlow off the final corner.
And how about the recovery by Colin Forster to get back up into this position? He spent most of this race or a lap down or more, and now he finds himself in the top 10 in a good enough chance. He has shown us that he has a car to make moves and be aggressive. He's gone to victory lane with us calling the races over at the Daytona International Speedway, including a sweep of the Season 5 4-wide racing series there at Daytona with 2 photo finishes. Forster looking to add a Talladega win to his resume and get a first career win in his first career start.
Forster has seen it all tonight, starting up front in P6 and then dropping back to 30th, then being trapped a lap down for a majority of the race, and just then, after stage 2, getting the lucky dog position and getting the candidacy go his way, and from there, he's been able to make good use of it. The Jacksonville native from Florida is going to try to put himself at the front in his debut, dropping the Hammah Cup Series race. He has experience racing with this group of drivers before, as we mentioned, was running in those final seasons of the Sunoco Cup Series before it went belly up, had several Championship 4 appearances to his credit, and a couple career victories. So Forster, who had a short but great career in Sunoco Cup action, trying to match and maybe exceed the expectations as he joins this series for the first time. And there's a switch over for the race lead. Warren Kyle Keith, Stempian maintained control. They got right in front of Harlow with the surge of a wave down the inside. And look who's back up to the top 5. The Kyle Busch 2007 throwback, and the man who led 39 laps at Daytona this year in Kip Easley.
Kip Easley had a great Daytona outing and has been up in the top 10 quietly for most of the evening here tonight. Is continuing to try to put this into work. doesn't have any help from his teammates necessarily around him on the racetrack, but Easley's been able to make this work for himself. He's leading the bottom. He's done a good job of being a leader and a pusher. One of the better ones at doing both. Usually somebody will stand out as being a better pusher or a better leader. A-Car's got a little bit of both, and that's really going to help him out in this stage of the race with just over 30 laps to go.
Well, in this situation, from a driver's perspective, Francisco, would you rather be a better pusher or a better leader?
Well, I'd rather be a better pusher, just because usually at the end of the race, because there's no cautions on the white flag you have to worry about in the sim, the runs that come from behind are the ones that usually will get you to a win. Yes, you want to be in the lead and control your own destiny, but sometimes there's just an unavoidable incident that happens. As speaking of an incident that's happening, an incident further back of the field, bringing out the caution flag here. It's going to include, I believe, possibly, there's the 25 of Chris Cabot involved, possibly getting some help there. We'll get a look in the replay, but to finish my point, Kenneth, I kind of actually forgot what I was talking about there with the caution flag.
Well, you're talking about the white flag and...
Yes. So I rather be behind, just because sometimes you get a big enough run from drivers behind you while leading that you gotta try and block it because you're going for the win, but you're probably going to not just wreck yourself in the process, but wreck a good portion of the field. And there's a stack up right there, and hard into the wall, and almost clipping the 23 was the 31, but Chris Cabot hard into the outside wall is probably going to significantly hamper the rest of his race, as we'll get a second look at it. But that's why I'd rather be in second, third, or even fourth, Kenneth. It gives you an opportunity to kind of see what's going on in front of you and attack from there. So it just depends on how what the field is sizing up to be in the closing laps. I've been in each position of it, being both the leader and being further back in position. And there's no right or wrong. I think that's as simple as it can be. There's no right and wrong. It really just comes down to what you do in that moment. You just gotta look at what's going on, react, and hope you chose correctly.
That's a good point, but we are entering pit road again. Field has come in with Warren Kyle Keith, the race leader, and you were watching the several replays from the incident to bring out our most recent yellow. Chris Cabot has yet to find a break tonight. Remember, he was in the middle of the stack-up entering turn 3 to give him front-end nose damage, and he spent the majority of this race, much like Forrester, a lap down. And ironic enough, Forrester was right in the heart of things to create the initial stack-up and hit the brakes right behind Sean Kalis' Chevrolet, which then stacked up Cabot, got him turned around, and there was nowhere for the former race leader of this event, James Kunkel, to go. And Kunkel, in turn, gets a ton of right front suspension damage. The toe link was ripped off of his car, so the Casey Kane throwback may not see any more laps tonight, and if it does, it will be many laps down. There's Cabot for good measure. Also on pit road, his teammate Cedric Hunter has found his way in. And that is an over 30-second pit stop, so some more damage done to Hunter. And he will spend his time getting his race car back in shape. So another yellow, 94 laps in the books, which, if we were to end this race now, would be right at the NIS length for iRacing official races at Talladega Super Speedway. But we will go a little bit longer. And for Warren Kyle Keith, in this position to win his first race of the season. Boy, we've seen him qualify so well over the course of the year and has yet to find the winning charm that the Florida native can potentially find some here at a track that in Sunoco Cup history he's been pretty successful at before. Let's try and dial up the 12th place runner at the moment and the man who's had to fight through adversity all race long. We're joined now by Colin Forrester. Colin, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
All right, Colin, first race with the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, and you've endured a ton. Started 6th, you dropped to 30th, you were a lap down, you found a way to get the Aaron's lucky dog with this Aaron's throwback. How can you describe what your race has been like from your perspective?
Well, definitely at the start, struggled. I've been having some weird, random frame stutters, so I dropped to the back because I didn't want to have a stutter and get someone caught up, and then just had a bad, I don't even know how I went a lap down. Oh, I was trying to fix it, and that's how I went a lap down. And there at the end of stage 2, I just got distracted for a second and lost the draft with some of the guys and didn't get the lucky dog, but got lucky there with the caution. Back on the lead lap, and always got a chance at this track.
So now we're looking at some strategy still to decide this race. You know, we're in a bit of a 30 lap to go position, so you're kind of on the edge of the fuel window, and a lot of guys like yourself, it did come down pit road not that long ago. So are you consider yourself safe on the fuel side of things, or do you feel that there will still be some strategic snafus along the way?
No, I'm safe, for sure. I'm definitely good on fuel. I don't know about the rest. I took a full tank just in case we had any green whites or anything. So I'm 100% safe. I got 8 laps to the good, but I know some people probably cut it close just to get a little more track position. But I'm for sure good.
All right, well, that's good news, Colin. And as you restart this race in 12th, hopefully we see some more great stuff out of you in your debut race for the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series. Best of luck out there on the restart.
All right, appreciate it, sir.
So Colin Forrester will join his several teammates as they will try to figure things out for the end of this race. And it's been a doozy for Colin over the course of the night. He has his teammates and fellow friends, Curtis Kelly and AJ Green, along with to support. And some of those guys from the Stonks Motorsports camp on the 4-wide racing side of things. They're all good friends. And Curtis Kelly, a former racer with this group in the Sunoco Cup Series. And AJ Green just tagging along for the ride. So they're adding a bit more support and some team help to a man who joins this series without a team to call home right now in 2025. And we will get this restart done with 30 laps to go at the stripe. Warren Kyle Keith, the race leader in that Bobby Labonte throwback with Interstate Batteries in Jurassic Park. Steven Stempien has hit this race out of the park for now with the stage sweeps and has found his way back into the running with some scoring position. Kip Easley and Ross Harlow will enter inside and outside of the second row. Easley has been one of the better pushers of the night. Ross Harlow untested until now. Through the restart zone, Warren Kyle Keith will take us through the green flag with 30 remaining from Talladega Super Speedway, and it's another wonderful jump for the outside control car. Warren Kyle Keith gets the momentum, goes down low to block the move from Steven Stempien, and Kip Easley wants second place in turn 1.
The outside lane is struggling to get up to speed right now, but they could get a big run down the back straightaway. That's usually what happens when they don't get that good enough launch. But look at Stempien already looking to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith, wasting no time to get back out in front.
Looks like 04 name didn't want anything to do with the inside off turn 2 and thought the outside would help him around. But Stempien in turn snags the race lead, and Ross Harlow will follow him up the 33 degrees of banking, a nearly catastrophic move as they wiggled up the racetrack into turn 3. But Ross Harlow, Steven Harlow will follow through second and third.
That was nearly deja vu from what resulted in Stempien spinning about 20 laps earlier off the front bumper of the other Harlow.
And he's safe now. On board with the Bethune, Massachusetts native who's already won 4 stage wins this season. Now the most of anyone. Harlow, Ross did with 3. Now Stempien has beat that mark with the 2 stage wins tonight and a ton of playoff points. And he told us in that short interview under yellow after stage 2 that he just needs to find a way to finish these races. He's done so well to get stage points. He's done a good job of solidifying himself mostly safe back to the playoff cut line at this stage of the campaign. But he needs to find the magic that has helped Steven Stempien win races before with this specific group of guys. He leads the pack. Harlow and Harlow second and third. Warren Kyle Keith yet to relinquish a move, and how about nearly 4 wide right where Robert A. Moyer Jr. is in P10.
A good comeback for Robert A. Moyer Jr., who spent most of this race also a lap down. Tony Kivitt getting real close with the 99 of Colin Forrester. There'll be 3 wide there for the position inside the top 10. A little bit of a break in front of Justin Erb, but Kivitt drops back momentarily to Lawson Peel as they're stuck in the middle now, trying to see if they can get behind Cedric Hunter. There's contact. Hunter go for the spin.
Hunter on the outside of turn 3 or turn 2 will go for the spill, and nobody will follow him in the mess. Will stay green.
And Peel's going to lose out on that as well. I think he clipped the 45 as he was losing a bit of control. He has no significant damage on his race car, just lost the Peel, but he's lost the main draft.
And it may be over for Peel if this race stays green. He's going to need an alternate strategy or another yellow to get himself the saving grace. Meanwhile, the 4-car pack, 3/4 of them Toyotas on the inside lane, led by Robert A. Moyer Jr. The
and here he goes.
Fast Broadcasting owner was also a lap down in this race alongside Chris Cabot and Colin Forrester. It was a poor start to this Talladega race, but like we always say at these super speedways, you are never out of it until the race is over. And for the second time tonight, first time since the opening stage, Zachary Hall emerges on the podium.
You were in that podium race, Kenneth, when that truck race where a driver running, I believe it was 29th on the white flag, took away the win. So anybody can go up here and still win this race as long as they're on the lead lap. And look at Richard Swavely go to the inside. He's going to try and take the lead away with help from Daniel Holdcroft into the Jeff Burton machine.
And we saw that 31 car of Holdcroft get sailed into the outside wall and nearly had his hood ripped away from his Chevrolet. He spent time on pit road to fix the race car, and all that resilience has led him to this moment. Entering 25 laps to go at the stripe. In a couple of laps, Holdcroft is in a chance to win this deal in that singular wireless Chevrolet throwback. Robert A. Moyer Jr. falls back. Warren Kyle Keith says, "Let me be the hunter." He'll move to the outside, looking for the lead, entering turn 3 this time.
Just a lot of switching between the lanes right now. You're seeing everybody starting to pick up the intensity, the aggressiveness, and there's Robert A. Moyer Jr. looking to the left rear, almost gets into Warren Kyle Keith, wiggles the 78. That's going to kill the outside's momentum.
You watched on that onboard camera how hard Warren Kyle Keith had to work just to save the car at about 185 miles an hour. And here comes Colin Forrester stepping into the top 5. He'll bring Dusty Applin potentially with him. Never mind, almost 3 wide, back to turn 1. Now Applin the leader up top.
Oh, and Moyer Jr. through the middle did not want to push the one car at all. Shuffles him up to the outside. And now in 4th place is Colin Forrester. What does he decide to do now with the track position and the lead lap status? He'll jump up to the top. The 8 of Kip Easley will go there. What do they do compared to Robert Moyer Jr.?
Forrester has a bit of a reputation, but no teammates to help him. But he has Kip Easley, who's been arguably the best pusher all night, to give him some assistance. Now Easley swaps down low.
Oh, there's Moyer.
Jr. underneath Forrester. They'll make it 3 wide, but does Moyer find help? Yes, he does. Toyota's in tail behind.
That looked very similar to what happened with Warren Kyle Keith on the previous lap. Nearly spins the car on the outside, and Forrester is going to lose the track position he has as everybody's kind of through the middle at that part of the racetrack. He'll probably get a chance here behind Chris Progar.
So it calms down quite a bit. Everyone's finding their place. And Stubblefield will find Moyer Jr., and the 18 car is not willing to push anyone right now. Entering 23 laps to go. And Zachary Hall, who has spent many a race this season in 2nd place or in the top 5, especially in the waning laps, is here again. It's 5 cars versus about 6, inside and outside. Back to turn 3.
And Hall's also been a good pusher in tonight's race, has really pushed some couple of cars out to the race lead. And there goes the 1 car back in front of Robert A. Moyer Jr. Applin not settling. He's trying to make this work, but obviously Robert Moyer Jr. not interested in trying to help the 1 car. He wants to do it himself, but at some point you have to help somebody, otherwise you're not going to get to the front.
I'm trying to count on my fingers, Francisco, how many drivers in the current top 10 were a lap down or more in this race? And there are several. I mean, Dusty Applin was one. We didn't think Applin could come back into the race given the circumstance he found himself in. And now they're 3 wide. Back in turn number 2, Sean Kalis, at the very inside of things, trying to play spoiler. Now he's in the middle. Kip Easley to help. Dusty Applin surges to 2nd as they enter turn 3. And Richard Swavely, the control car for now. But how long does it last? 3 abreast.
Oh yeah, it's well and truly formed up here, approaching 20 laps to go. You can tell what part of the race we're in.
It's go time with 22 to go. And the 3rd place car for Drinkin' Bros Racing has now emerged on the podium for the first time all night long. And it's Tony Kibbe, driver of the number 12 machine from Southern Maryland, has yet to find a good race in 2025. And tonight may be the charm if he can find a win, and he's got teammates to help. Many cars down the road. Craig Parks, Lawson Peel, Brandon Banks, and some others. They'll go up high. Now Kibbe wants the lead down the super stretch.
How about the recovery from Lawson Peel? He got a piece of the 45 on that instant a couple laps ago. Lost the main draft. They caught up to the main draft, and now he's in the top 5.
Oh, and Moyer almost got spun in the middle of the pack. 4 wide.
And they get around him. He's done a good job of holding the middle. Now Zachary Hall tries to go by on the outside with Colin Forrester. See the 8 car dropping back a little bit. That's kind of split up the front pack at about 9th. In the first 8 or 7 or so cars have really pulled away, and that's mostly Drinkin' Bros Racing now that's on that outside, Kenneth. So after running in the back all race, now here's a powerhouse of Drinking Bros Racing cars on the outside. Make it 5 of them with Craig Parks.
Their strategy always seems to work at the tail end of these super speedway races. Lag back, wait for the field to decide their fate, and when it's go time, go for it. And at Daytona, there were 3 Drinking Bros Racing cars that finished in the top 10. Lawson Peele
Now they're
fell
1 through
second,
7.
Schaefer to 4th, and then Kip Easley, who rounded out that top 10 after starting in 16th. And a majority of this group had spent a majority of this race either 16th or more on back, just hanging in the back of the field, seeing the notes up front. And now they have a chance to control this race with 20 laps to go. Kibbett, Peel, Banks, Schaefer, and Parks, top 5 at the line.
Drinking Bros Racing right now, Kenneth, is 1st through 7th.
They are on a tear, and now Dusty Applin wants to spoil the party. He'll find the former race leader in Richard Swavely there to help. Doesn't matter anymore with the amount of cars they have on the inside. Warren Kyle Keith is going to look to the middle with no one to help him, and he's at the sucker hole. Tony Kibbett in control. Now it's about 7 car lengths back to the inside car.
If they can control both lanes, that really hampers anybody else from being able to take this race away from there. Zachary Hall jumping to the outside of Kip Easley with Colin Forrester. That's why you want to control both lines, because something like that can happen and really split this whole team apart. Oh, and there goes the 23 to the middle.
Camera with Forrester. And how does he decide this one? Schaefer to the inside. He'll block the run from Hall. Forrester stays up
Schaefer
line.
gets turned.
Schaefer gets turned right off of the tri-oval, and it gets a bunch of cars in it. Our biggest crash of the night occurs with 19 to go.
No caution.
And we're gonna stay green. Can you believe it?
And now the caution's out.
The
admin throws the caution.
It's the yellow flag, and it's Eric Schaefer who shut down Zachary Hall's momentum. Got spun off the corner. And that will bring out the yellow flag. Zachary Hall worked his way up into the top 10, and he stays there. It's Schaefer, though, that gets the worst end of the situation.
One car has some big damage on it as well, Kenneth. I think he's got some suspension damage because he nearly collected 2 cars after the initial contact with Schaefer on the way back up the racetrack.
So here's a look at it outside turn 4. Watch that bright yellow, number 23, work his way through the middle, weaves through the pack of cars. Schaefer says, oh no, I'm going to block right in front of you. And then it's secondary bit of contact there as Schaefer got right out of line, and Dusty Applin found himself with nowhere to go. Richard Swavely, former race leader, was right behind Applin at the moment of the spin from Schaefer. Here's a look from Swavely, watching the WeatherTech Chevrolet in front, command the charge on the inside, thinks it's all business as usual, and then you see a sideways race car in a matter of moments.
And he didn't look like he was going to spin all that much, but the contact with Applin is what really sent him spinning. But fortunately for him as well, no significant damage from that.
And Applin gets the worst of it. It's the right front of the race car torn up. And he follows with James Kunkel in on pit road. Those 2 cars are torn up. And so the yellow flies with 18 laps to go. And like you said, Drinkin' Bros Racing occupying 1st through 7th at a moment in this race within those last several laps. And now it's 1st through 4th with Kibbett, Peel, Banks, and Parks. Colin Forrester back in the top 5. And then Zachary Hall, Steven Stepien, Kip Easley, Ross Harlow, and Stephen Harlow top 10 right after the caution.
Yeah, a couple of Drinking Bros cars got in that incident, so that's why I was talking about if you want to control both lines, because you can get a situation where you start lose numbers, and while you have them, you want to use them to your advantage. And here's the view from Applin's car as the contact with Eric Schaefer occurred, and as he almost comes back up and collecting several other cars.
And again, right in the tracks of Schaefer's spinning car, nothing that Applin could do in the other life. And he goes right up the racetrack, almost collects the rest of the field there. I was entering turn 1. And no steering on his Chevrolet when you have tolling damage, especially on the right front of the race car. The car is going to track up the banking, and for Applin it did just that, but in the right moment to not catch anyone else in the mayhem. And for right now, yellow flag may be the pivotal decider inside 17 to go. We'll get a moment to talk with Tony Kibbett. Tony, you got a copy with us?
I got you, Kenneth. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I hope you're doing well. Also, because this race has turned on its head, you and the Drinkin' Bros Racing camp have employed the similar super speedway strategy of staying in the back until the moment matters. You're right now at the front. How different does this race feel now that you and your teammates have control of the pack?
We just need to try to stay in control of the top side. If somebody gets to the outside of you, it seems like the side draft is so strong, you just get sucked back.
So with this situation now, you have your teammate Lawson Peel and then Brandon Banks, and a couple car back is Craig Parks, and then Kip Easley is the back end of this top 10, probably one of the best pushers all night long. What level of confidence do you have now? Because it's felt like all race, it's been a brawl between different team drivers trying to find supremacy tonight, and all of a sudden, it's the heavily tailored team of Drinkin' Bros Racing at the front with you leading the pack back to the restart.
I just like to like for one of us to win it. I mean, I'd love to get the win, but I mean, because I missed 4 or 5 weeks because I was working a job where I was working 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, so I had no time to race. But it's my first week back, and hey, it's fun to be leading right now.
It is fun. Hopefully it results in a win inside these final 16. Right as you guys are going to get the one to grow signal, let's talk about your throwback. Tell us why choosing this specific Altel Ryan Newman throwback, and why bring it out for tonight's race at Dega?
I just went. I was looking today. So I didn't even know it was throwback week till last night because I haven't been paying attention to Discord or anything. And I went on J-Ski, went to 2003 number 12 schemes, and this is what caught my eye, and I made it up real quick today.
Well, it's a beauty. Even though it's a very simple scheme, all the logos correct. The car looks great under the Chevrolet here tonight, and you've got a good race building for you, Tony, as we see it. Best of luck on the restart with 15 laps to go.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
So Tony will rejoin his DBR teammates. He's got control of the lead on this one to go signal from the iRacing official pace car. But prophetic as always, Talladega is when we talk about the omen that floats around this sacred land that used to be tribal land way before this ever became a 2.66 mile home for NASCAR and for racing. Francisco, the big one and a wild winner always comes about, and we may even see a photo finish on the way there. The story and the prophecy is not fully told until it's over.
Correct. That we either can go green the rest of the way, or it'll be a caution fest until we get there with all the overtimes used. There is no in-between when it comes to this racetrack.
And it will throw you for a loop. It will take you out of the race. It will give you a win. It's just the part of magic in super speedway racing is that it can offer anyone a chance at glory. And in a season that's dominated by the team that mans the front row and the seconds right now, their story could be adding on to the list of DBR winners and spreading the wealth. Eric Schaefer has a win this season in Phoenix. Brandon Banks was able to stave off the competition at the tail end of the Chicagoland race. So it's not only Lawson Peel winning, it's the DBR team trying to work together as a whole to get as many drivers as possible into the playoffs. And with Tony Kivitt up front, he would love nothing more than a win at a track like this. Green flag waves with 15 laps to go at the stripe. Tony Kivitt gets the launch. And from the first 2 rows, it is congregational, but it's also comprehensive in its design. Kivitt, the leader, to turn 1.
And this also gives Drinkin' Bros Racing some good practice, even though we're going to be at Daytona on Wednesday, Kenneth. They're going to be trying to do everything they can to get Brandon Banks into the playoffs in that situation. So this gives them some inadvertent good practice for what they're going to do if they're in a similar spot come Wednesday.
And for the upteenth time this season, it's Zachary Hall versus Drinkin' Bros Racing. That bright yellow Toyota is the only Toyota inside this top 10 as we see it. Everyone else, Chevrolets, or now Colin Forster being the other one, but everyone else, bow-tie Chevrolets, and then a bit of Timothy Stubblefield, that singular Ford Mustang. It's Brandon Banks in command. Kivitt up top to Rhythm, the outside lane. 14 to go. Zachary Hall to P2.
He's still side by side with Kivitt, who has the help from his teammate. Two of them at that with Craig Parks on the outside. So the 23 in a complete sandwich. Drinkin' Bros Racing on every single corner of his race car. He has to look all the way back to Stephen Harlow and the 99 of Colin Forster to find anybody that is not associated with Drinkin' Bros Racing. And I think the non-Drinkin' Bros Racing drivers are probably looking better off banding together against Drinkin' Bros Racing rather than fighting each other. That'll only help that team.
And for Category 5 Esports, only another car in this main pack. It's the 45, Cedric Hunter, and Robert A. Moyer Jr., and they both are going side by side. Hunter looks for a tertiary lane. It's Chris Cabot, the fellow Toyota, to offer some assistance.
Warren Kyle Keith goes up there.
Now, no real challenge for those guys. Warren Kyle Keith, the tertiary car, to slide up, and does anyone join them? 3 wide inside the top 10.
This is where it's going to start to pick up once again, like we saw. And there goes the 70-11, actually. Stephen Harlow jumps up to the outside. Forster goes to the middle. They have a big run down the back straightaway.
Do they do anything with it? And does Tony
The
Kimmett
12 blocks.
He goes up high, make it 4 wide. Stephen Harlow goes for the race lead, and Tony Kimmett goes from hero to zero in the matter of 200 feet to turn 3. Lawson Peel trying to break free with Stephen Harlow through the middle lane, and Warren Kyle Keith, who has not found the way to give up tonight, looks to the outside, and we're 3 abreast. 12 to go at the line.
And the angle showed you perfectly what is going through the mind of the leader when you have those runs. You have to make a decision, otherwise you get left hung out to dry. And this racetrack, even on the back straightaway where it's not as wide as the tri-oval, just so wide that you're able to go 4 wide without really pressing the race cars up close to one another. And now we resume normal 3 wide action. Forster in the middle, and there goes Warren Kyle Keith. He has help from a couple of Toyotas. There's 3 of them lined up nose to tail, make it 4 of them actually lined up nose to tail on the outside.
Over the last lap, Tony Kimmett went from P1 to P15, and now it's Cedric Hunter who shines in the limelight. Category 5 Esports now has a force to be reckoned with. Cedric
but they
Hunter
lost momentum. Looks like the 78 had a moment in the middle of 3 and 4, and they just lost all his momentum. There goes Steven Stempian.
Stempian works up high. He'll take second behind Hall, and there is no help to the inside lane. A bit of distance to the 3rd car in Lawson Peel. And back to turn 1 with 11 laps remaining. Steven Stempian swept both stages and then crashed earlier on in the race after getting turned off the final corner from Stephen Harlow's front bumper. Says, I'm not going to give this one away after what I've done tonight. And Zachary Hall, who's finished runner-up several times already in his DTH Cup Series career, wants the checkered flag for himself and himself only. The Newport, North Carolina native will lead the field through turn 3. The bright yellow Toyota breaks free in the daylight that's slowly setting here in Alabama. And Brandon Banks, the Terry Labonte throwback, works his way to the inside. He'll take 10 laps to go with his teammates behind, 2nd and 3rd.
Once again, that outside had a moment in the center of 3 and 4 where they just lose all sorts of momentum out of nowhere. And now Drinking Bros Racing capture the top 3 on the outside lane, but the 23's not going to think he's going to go through the middle. Banks has to try and block it, and they leave Chris Progar through the inside to take over the race lead.
The Dickies Chad Chaffin throwback now shares a spot at the front with Justin for TOW Racing and his teammate behind him. We haven't seen them since the opening stages of this race. And now all of a sudden they've got a breath of life. We're still 3 wide for about 5th on back. It's Brandon Banks leading the middle group, and Kip Easley sort of falling back with Lawson Peel on the very outside. They will catch up to around the top 15, and there may be some pickups from here on there. Here comes Schaefer, outside look.
He was part of the most recent caution, and now he's back up into the top 5. The 23 gets a big push from Kip Easley. Schaefer was not going to block that one this time, and there goes a move. Tony Kimmett to the outside of Justin but he has no help.
You got to measure your moves, Francisco, here at this juncture of the race. Kimmett not finding a teammate to support, and he will have to wait a couple more seconds before the bright red and black Dale Sr. throwback of Eric Schaefer gets to the all-tail Ryan Newman throwback rear bumper, and Zachary Hall, who found a way at the front, is now the main man on the outside lane as they've stalled out entering turn 3. Near the double yellow line is where the fastest groove is. Chris Progar leads the control, coming to 8 laps to go. Justin Hunter, Keith, and Swabley, the top 5. Back to the stripe.
Craig Parks now leads the main Drinking Bros Racing lineup as Kivet actually goes to the outside of the 17, and there goes Steven Stempian to follow Kivet.
Remember, these moves will make sense later, but for right now, they are not providing any sort of boost. They remain trapped inside the top 15. Tony Kivet, the main man up there, his best run at the moment, running 3 wide, is only 8th place. And they have not caught up to the main pack that are now 6 to 7 car lengths in front. And the
but they got a good run going here.
Black Chevrolet has control. Here comes Kivet.
with the help from Stempien, and Stempien with a great push to get the 12 side by side with the lead. There goes Craig Parks up the middle, and all three lanes converging as Chris Progar starts to stay stuck on the bottom. Schaefer squiggles through the middle. Stempien now up to second. What does he decide to do?
Maybe bumping YG and saying, who do you love? Coming to 7 laps to go. What camp do you follow with? Stempien swings down low. He'll take the bottom alley with Kip Easley to look for the race lead. And right behind is Zachary Hall trying to pick up the pieces of Kivitt's failed run at the race lead. 6 to go when they cross the stripe next time by, and there's a crash. Stephen Harlow goes hard into the outside wall, but he does not spin further. The yellow flag does not fly, and we stay green.
And the front of the field is getting single file, so this is going to become an interesting position to be Steven Stempien. If they get in line like this, a run can come quickly and out of nowhere. And you see it's a little bit of a breakaway behind the number 5 of Brandon Banks. So the top 5 have kind of pulled away. 3 Drinking Bros Racing drivers. Stempien gets knocked sideways, and he's going to spin to the inside.
He's spinning to the apron, but he's trying to save it. What a save by the Massachusetts native, and just like the last incident, we're staying green. Stempien's race may be over. The dagger dealt, and Kip easily takes control with 6 laps remaining.
Yeah, Easley was not lifting off the bumper of the 88, and now that puts Drinking Bros Racing once again in the entirety of the top 5. They are desperate to control this race.
And there's a look on the right side of your screen at how that all transpired entering 5 laps to go, as Stempien finds himself in the worst position possible, much like Stephen Harlow. And Kip Easley, who nearly saw the checkered flag at Daytona go his way, ended up with a 10th place finish, now gets trapped, and Craig Parks, for the first time tonight, takes the lead. 5 laps to go.
And now we have the replay available for what happened to the 88. And you see there's Kip Easley just barely gets into the left rear, and he almost had it saved, and then there's like a subtle second touch of the bumpers between the 8 and the 88, sending Stempien sideways. Excellent save by the 88, but unfortunately, he's going to need a caution flag.
He is desperately needing a yellow to fly and a crash to occur, but as the field works together again, they congest further, so another chance for Stempien to find that yellow flag and get back in this race should we potentially end up in an organic restart or an overtime finish. But for right now, it's Craig Parks, Eric Schaefer, Chris Gabeau, Chris Progar, and Justin Erb, your current top 5, and no signs of life for the 2 Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolets up high, with 2 number 5 throwbacks in Kyle Busch and Terry Labonte. And now it's Curtis
and a
Terry,
crash!
and now Chris, there's a crash right behind, and there is many
The big one.
In turn 1.
There's the big one, that one we haven't seen all night. Multiple cars involved going into turn 1 with 4 laps to go, and that'll bring us into overtime.
And here's a look at the incident, the biggest one of the night, taking out several DBR contenders, and I believe it begins with Tony Kivitt on the inside. They stacked up right where Kivitt was, and he gets turned by Swavely up the racetrack, into Peel, into Banks, into Hall, into K-List. And the list continues. Ross Harlow, Colin Forster nearly getting into it. That is by far the largest stack up we've seen tonight. And here's a better look at it. It's the white and black number 12. On the inside, there's the initial stack up, and then a secondary one that gets Swavely to the back bumper of the Altel car.
Multiple Drinking Bros Racing cars involved in that one, and I noticed the 23 of Zachary Hall get some air.
We're going to look from Hall's perspective. Forced at the end of this race. And the rear end of the car lifts up off the ground for about a split second, and he ends up in the heart of that incident. All these cars damaged, and it is a good sign for Steven Stempien and for Stephen Harlow. For all the incidents they found themselves in, only 2 of them, 17th and 18th, they have a chance to repair their cars and get back into it. And for the first time tonight, we will decide this race through overtime.
Looking at this running order right now, Kenneth, if you look at first, all the way back to about the 11th position, only 1 driver in that space has a victory, and that's Eric Schaefer running second. Everybody else is looking to capture their first win of the season, so this is a completely wide open race for somebody to get their first win of the season. So that's going to amount to the extra craziness we'll see in this overtime restart.
It shows you how crazy the season has been already, and just how dominant Drinking Bros Racing has been, with Lawson Peel winning the 3, and with Brandon Banks, Eric Schaefer winning races. The team has been on fire, and Ross Harlow broke that streak, but with the way it's trending right now, DBR is in a good chance to get another victory added to their total. And with Craig Parks, with Schaefer, maybe even Kip Easley running 5th. But again, this race is not going to be decided by only DBR. There are several teams that are still with a fighting chance. TOW Racing, their duo has been strong all night long, with Chris Progar leading laps late. Justin Erb, as strong as he's been all night long, hasn't faltered this evening in that Tony Stewart throwback. And then you look at the big spoiler here, that Toyota in the 25, Chris Gabot, who, if you look at it from a first glance, you think maybe that's not a throwback for Gabot's car, but you take a closer look at it, and it is a throwback in design to Steve Parks' 2003 Chevy Monte Carlo. Not the full colors or the sponsors adorned on his Toyota, but it's that DEI-E that goes on the side of the race car and that blackened hood. And it tells a nod to Steve Parks' car back in the day in that old Dale Earnhardt Incorporated team. Gabot looking for his first career win in this overtime restart.
Yeah, if you look at the side of the 25 in particular, you see those lines, those triangle lines, if you will, that go down the side of the car. That's classic Dale Earnhardt Incorporated design on that race car, which would later be adopted in a different format by Team Penske for a large part of the 2010s and even portions of our current decade before they eventually abandoned the design. As we get one more look from Cedric Hunter, who made it through that wreck, and that was some good wreck avoidance there by Cedric Hunter to get through that incident. Hunter right now finds himself running in the, trying to find him in the running order.
P9.
He was in the P9 right now, yes. So in the top 10, still has a chance to win this race. We saw him be competitive earlier in the evening, so don't count off this 45. Colin Forster's up in the 8th spot as well. He still has a chance. Tony Kivitt, despite being involved in that incident, is still in the 12th spot with some semblance of a repaired car. And Steven Stempien in 15th can still make it happen, especially if we get multiple overtime attempts.
Like we've seen before, and what we saw in that last run, Francisco, you can go to the back, to the front, to the back, to the front in about 5 laps time. I mean, Tony Kivitt dropped from 1st to 15th, and then in about 2 to 3 laps time, got himself back in the race lead. Cedric Hunter was at the tail end of the main pack a couple of laps ago, and then he shot up to the front before dissolving a bit through the top 10. So the track position matters for a split second, and then it all changes as we head into our first overtime restart of the night and our first overtime attempt since Chicagoland back in race number 5 in early March. So how it will all work out is as follows. We will restart this race with 2 laps to go. Everybody double file as always for our green flag restarts. The field will have one mission: finish this race under green and make it to the white flag. If a caution does not come out before the leader takes the white flag, we will end this race under green no matter how it shakes out. But if we do get a caution before the white flag falls, we will double them up and try it again. We have 3 full attempts to end this race under Droppin the Hammah overtime. If we do not get to the white flag before yellow flies on the final attempt at overtime, the field will be frozen, and whoever is the leader at the timing of that last caution flag will be the winner. Daytona came down to a late race restart, and the leader was decided off the final corner when the top 2 crashed exiting turn 4, and Timothy Stubblefield broke free for his first win of the year. Does it happen again? Do we see any theatrics? Or do the heroes up front stay where they are to capture the win? First attempt at OT. 2 laps to go. Craig Parks and Eric Schaefer will lead the field through the long wait into the Geico restart zone for what may be the final time. And the DeWalt Chevrolet hasn't spent much time up front this evening, but now is his time to be called off the bench. Green flag in the air. Overtime number 1 from Talladega.
A good restart by the 17 to get cleared to the top position. You see him choosing which line is he going to attempt to defend. He goes down to the bottom where Eric Schaefer, his teammate, is, and Chris Progar in the 7 lined up in third. A good restart by the 17 of Craig Parks, and we'll see what Chris Cabot is able to do on the outside. He's got a good run going with several Toyotas behind.
He's got help from the 20 of Justin Erb right behind, then Forrester, Keith, and Tony Kivett, who was involved in our last crash, is somehow still alive in it. Craig Parks will take the field through 3 and 4 as they try to catch the white flag before a yellow flies. Gabo is still challenging from the outside for third place, but no one can beat the black and yellow DeWalt Chevrolet with Schaefer in tow. Gabo is sideways, and they will get to the white flag. One more to go from Talladega.
Justin Erb and the 25 of Chris Cabot were struggling to get nose to tail aligned correctly. They were getting each other sideways and not helping one another out. Now the 4 cars at the front have broken away, 3 of them being Drinking Bros Racing. Eric Schaefer's the only driver of that group that has won a race. Progar looked to the outside momentarily, will tuck back in. We'll see if anybody makes a move. You see further back, the 25. Looks like there's almost a crash in the very back of the second group. But all the attention sits right here in this main 4-car group. They're racing each other for the 5th spot. Chris Progar looking to see if he can break up that duo in front of him of Drinking Bros Racing. He's going to get into the back of Schaefer. He's going to try to look to the inside, to the outside, but nothing doing there. And through the trial oval, no moves made by Eric Schaefer. It'll be Craig Parks capturing his first career win from Talladega.
What a drive by Craig Parks. Held his own in the final 2, and with a bit of help from his teammate, Craig Parks gets his first career victory here at the Talladega Superspeedway and becomes the 4th different Drinking Bros Racing Chevrolet to win a race in 2025. 3 of the 4 top 4 finishers from the same team to join him.
Continuing their dominance this season. Picking up this one here at Talladega with a 1-2 and 3 of the top 5. Despite all the damage that's gone on for them in this race, all the incidents they were a part of. And how about Craig Parks, Kenneth? Took advantage of an opportunity that he has here at these super speedways to try and get a win, and he took it. Great job by Craig Parks.
And in an odd set of circumstances, to see at Talladega the leader at the green flag restart ends up being the exact same leader the entire way through the restart and through the white flag lap. Something you often don't see. Chris Progar tried a look at the outside. Kip easily didn't really help him. And Drinking Bros Racing stands up front. Eric Schaefer helping his teammate Craig Parks to the start-finish line and to the checkered flag. First win for Craig Parks comes at Talladega, and he will join some of the other teammates for Droppin' the Hammah victory lane at the 2nd Superspeedway race of the year.
Channeled his inner Matt Kenseth to capture this win. We see Kenseth get some victories here at Talladega and Daytona before. In similar fashion, just kind of rode around, never really paid too much attention to him, and all of a sudden, there he was.
So we're going to look at how this restart unfolded for the 17 of Parks. He gets the jump from the outside, and Chris Cabot might have been the other challenger here, but the outside line just falls apart through these final 2. Francisco, take us through what happens through these final laps on this overtime restart and what helps DBR stay up front.
And they were not able to get that push going all too well there down the back straightaway and even the front straightaway. You saw the 25 wiggling a whole lot. The 20 was moving around a whole lot, so they weren't able to get stabilized. And that allowed Drinking Bros Racing cars all the way around to get clear and control that race. And you knew that with all those cars there, they were going to push that 17 out. And the 7 was just not in a position to make a move. They almost crashed there. But with the 7 basically being surrounded by 3 Drinking Bros Racing cars, the 8 wasn't going to help him. The 3 was certainly going to defend as well. So it definitely made it very easy for Drinking Bros Racing to control how this race finish would go down, especially since, despite not being able to make a move, they also held up Colin Forrester there by going side by side. They didn't really get a chance to make a move for a 4th or 5th coming to the line. But right here, you were starting to get the sense that this was going to be Drinking Bros Racing victory. It was just a question of which driver.
And it almost seemed that Progar was going to slide up high and let Kip easily take him to the front. But in the effort to wait until the last moment I don't know if any of them tried to move out here. Progar was pushing Schaefer. Schaefer was getting all the back bumper of Craig Parks' Chevrolet, and Kip easily lags back to avoid any potential momentum from Chris Progar's side. And that helps Craig Parks stay up front in the clean air without any challengers to win the race from the Talladega Superspeedway. And for Parks, he will relish this moment in all sincerity. First career victory, and becomes the 4th different DBR Chevrolet to win a race this season. Let's get a moment to look at the unofficial results from Talladega after 127 laps and an overtime finish. Parks the winner by 5/100ths of a second over Eric Schaefer. Chris Progar gets his season best 3rd here at the Superspeedway. Kip Easley also gets his best finish of the season with 4th. Chris Cabot wraps up the top 5 in his DEI Steve Park throwback. Justin Erb for the Tony Stewart throwback, solid all night long, and he takes the TOW racing car to P6. Colin Forrester gets a top 10 in his first career DTH Cup Series race. Richard Swavely back in 8th with Warren Kyle Keith in 9th. And how about Daniel Holdcroft crashed earlier tonight, and he wraps up tonight's top 10.
11th place will go to the 88 of Steven Stempy, the dominant car of the night for sure, Kenneth, and unfortunately not even a top 10 finish to show for it for our stage sweeper. Casey Knighton will be in the 12th position, Cedric Hunter in 13th, Robert A. Moyer Jr. will be in 14th, Zachary Hall will finish in the 50th spot with Kevin Roy in 16th, Brandon Banks for 17th, Timothy Stubblefield, the Daytona winner, not the same result here tonight, will finish in 18th, Tony Kivitt in 19th, and Lawson Peel with a now season worst finish of 20th.
Back in 21st is Alex Muscarella. Stephen Harlow, strong race car, but faulty finish. Sean Kalis is 23rd. Ross Harlow in 24th. Surprising to see him back there, but given the circumstance that happened at the end of the race, with the big one, it killed Harlow's momentum at the end. Richard Modrich is in the top 25, and then you get to some of those that did not find the end of this race with a clean car. Dusty Applin, 26. Jason Hastings, James Kunkel, Justin Hendry, and CJ Munier rounding out the top 30 drivers. Eric Stewart did not make the green flag tonight, so he is scored as the 31st and final car in tonight's race. Well, we are joined by the man occupying Droppin the Hammah victory lane for just the first time in his career, newly minted race winner, Craig Parks. Craig, how can you process the way this race ended? You make your way to the front with your teammates in tandem, and it comes down to a final restart where you don't even see anyone take your outside. It was you and Schaefer to the checkered flag for the win.
I'm still processing, man. I'm big cheesing right now. This and Daytona were the only tracks I probably had any chance of grabbing and winning this league, and it's just like, oh my god, I cannot believe it. I'm on cloud 9 right now.
A crazy way to get it done. I mean, given the fact that you started 27th, you and DBR and the rest of the team had the strategy to stay back and wait for this race to tell the story, for you guys to write the prophetic ending. How do you describe the way you guys bounced back, given, the several cautions that came out, and the way you were able to plant this race car up front and remain calm under all that pressure?
It's a lot of great teamwork and everything. We're constantly talking throughout the race, finding ways to get connected and everything, and it's just the whole team works together to push us all up to the front, and it's a whole lot of teamwork. If anything, this track proves that racing is a team sport.
So with you getting your first career victory, apart from the team story of you guys dominating 2025, your first W, and across this series and other series that I've seen you race in, obviously the goal to win, and you told us there, Super Speedway is your chance at glory. How good does it feel to finally call yourself a race winner, given the competition of this series and how the season has unfolded so far?
I'm on cloud 9. I can't believe I honestly, it wouldn't have surprised me if I never was a winner in this league. The talent is just so high, and my team alone, Banks and Schaaf and Lawson. I mean, the talent is just there. Kip and I honestly I did not think I'd ever get a win, and it took Schaaf. I owe this one to Schaaf because he pushed me all the way there. He was ready to blow his car up coming out of 3 and 4, and he stunted it, and he pushed me to the win.
And I'm sure this league is celebrating this win all around. A very highly anticipated win, and the emotions are all over the place. I mean, we're excited as well. Craig, congratulations on the Talladega win. Before we let you bounce, though, and continue your celebrations tonight, anybody that you want to thank or shout out to for this race?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Kenneth, and the whole broadcast team. You guys do an awesome job putting on this series. It's always fun to go back and watch the races afterwards and see me on the broadcast and everything, share it with my friends and family. But at the same time, thanks for the DTH guys for putting on the league, and most importantly, thanks to the DBR brothers, man. If it wasn't for them, I would not be anywhere near as good as I've become in oval, and I'm not great, but they have really brought me to a new level, and I'm so appreciative to everybody at Drinking Brothers Racing.
Well, the love from us is just the same as the love you have for us. I mean, we truly appreciate the time, Craig. Congratulations on the first win here from Talladega. Go enjoy it. It's going to be great in the aftermath of it. Congrats on the win, and we'll see you guys at the next race, Dover Motor Speedway.
Hey, thanks, Kenneth. We'll see you there.
Craig Parks, the winner for the first time here in Talladega. He stunts the field in overtime, but with the help of a fellow teammate, Eric Schaefer, the man probably the most instrumental, Francisco, in getting Craig Parks to the victory, clutch in the overtime restart.
Absolutely. Eric was a crucial role in helping his teammate get the victory here. And Eric, you had a good comeback after that spin on the front straightaway. Talk us through your race here and what was going through your mind in those closing laps working with your teammates.
Race was good, man. Had some, I don't know what was going on in the middle there, getting spun around and stuff. But no, man, good race. How about old Craig Parks there, man? Yeah, I told him on the restart. I said, look, you need to take the top, come down to the bottom after you cross the line, and stay in front of me, and I will steer your car and push you and make sure you get this win. And that's the way the team should have worked, and that's what way we worked tonight. So I'm really happy for him, man. That's huge for him.
Just the way it was drawn up, right? The success that you guys have had here this season, with this being now your sixth victory in 8 races, just an incredible run. The entire team is on with 4 different drivers going to victory lane. Just kind of talk us through what has gone through in being able to make that happen in this league so far.
I honestly don't know, man. It's just the Wednesday league helps a lot with all of us, but I don't know, man. Lawson helps us tremendously a lot. Banks helps us a lot. I hate this car, but I've somehow is starting to figure it out. But out of the entire team, everybody else is way better at this car than I am. But we're just starting to pick it up, man. I don't know. It's just like our team has a huge amount of momentum right now, and we're just going forward with it. That's all. That's really all I can say. I mean, the amount of talent on our team, we should have won every race, but to have that many so far, I think is pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, it must be pretty awesome for you guys. And you have another one coming up now on Wednesday at Daytona. That's another big one for the team as well, trying to get a couple guys into the playoffs. But Eric, great effort here to get second place, another top 5 finish for you. Who else makes this possible for you and your 3 team?
Yeah, Francisco, huge shout out to you and Kenneth for everything you guys do. Like Craig said, you guys always put on the best broadcast, hands down, no matter what. It's always good to have you guys calling our races. Huge shout out to Stempian and all the guys in the DTH Discord and all the admins and everything for the league. And definitely huge shout out to all the DBR brothers. Jason had some issues tonight, and Newbraw was watching us, but no, huge shout out to them, and definitely huge shout out to Craig, man. He really deserved that. It's about time we get him a win. So huge shout out to him.
Appreciate the time you take with us, Eric. Congrats on the P2, and we hope to see you out there at the Monster Mile.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's Eric Schaefer grabbing second place tonight, and it's a third for Chris Progar for TOW Racing. Chris, first of all, an amazing pull with the throwback tonight to Chad Chaffin with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, but you pulled off an unbelievable race tonight. You and Justin Erb seemed like attached at the hip and strong throughout this race. You lead a couple of laps and you take away third. How does it feel to grab the podium, and how would you best describe tonight?
Well, it feels great. Like it's been a while since I've got to talk to you. I figured might as well do something worthy of an interview, right? It was a great race tonight. From the green flag to the checkered flag. I have never been so proud of these guys. I mean, every single week, all these drivers have just been amazing, and I am just so thankful for everything that they've been doing. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm thrilled for this. I mean, I knew coming to the green flag that I probably didn't have much of a chance. Herb was in sixth, so he was over on the outside. There was no real way he was going to be able to get to me, and I had Schaefer, Parks, and then Kip behind me. So I had to stay locked up and just hope that those two made a mistake and I could get around, but that was about it.
And in the mayhem of Talladega, obviously nothing guaranteed in those final laps, but seemed a little tamer than we'd expect with the moves looking for the race lead. Did you think about trying to make a move? What was the logistics of the 4-car breakaway and what you were thinking as you're on that white flag lap trying to chase to the checkered?
Well, I knew Schaefer was locked up on Park, so the only thing I could do was push up against him to take away the airflow, maybe throw some temperature up in his engine, get him to pull out a line, or blow his motor. I was joking in the admin channel earlier. I was like, yeah, I'd wreck my own mother for a win right now. But I wasn't gonna try to do bad bumps or anything like that. But I mean, if I could push him till his temperatures got a little hot and he had to maybe pull out, I might have had a chance. But yeah, with three DBR versus one TOW, I was thankful to get third.
Well, regardless, it's a great finish here from Talladega Superspeedway. And one thing that surprised me, or not surprised me, but something I found interesting was you mentioning the level of this league and how happy you've been with the level of competition, with the camaraderie, and the way the races have gone. We've talked a couple times to Ross Harlow, and he's told us that this is by far the best racing he's ever seen in a league capacity, especially with this group of guys. So how meaningful is it to you to overall, take out the driver's perspective, see the way this league has grown in such a short amount of time and to have banger after banger week in and week out?
I'm a proud papa. I mean, when Stampy and I were hammering this out, we had no idea that this is what it was going to be like. And I can't say it enough how thankful and grateful I am to these guys that show up week in and week out. They are out there busting our butts. Now, I know we might have some on-track stuff. There's, tempers flare. It's going to happen. But nobody's going above and beyond, and it's been great, and I can't be any prouder of this group of guys than what I am right now.
Well, for us as broadcasters, we've seen the fruits of labor you and Steven Stepien have put into this league, from the inaugural offseason to what started off as a great race at Daytona and what continues to impress ourselves and our expectations as well. Chris, congratulations on the third place finish. It's been a long one tonight, but can you give us a moment to thank anyone that's made it happen for you in this evening's race from Dega?
I mean, you and Francisco. I mean, you guys, again, everybody said it. I can't thank you guys enough. You put on a fantastic broadcast. The least we can do is put on a fantastic show for you guys to broadcast. And I got to thank the drivers. Without them, we would have absolutely nothing. I would be twiddling my thumbs on a Sunday evening if it weren't for them. And lastly, I want to thank Fastenal. Their checks cash every 2 weeks, so I got to thank them too. So that's pretty much all I got. Just thank you to everybody.
Well, for us, it really means a lot, and our love goes to you as well from our side. Chris, congratulations on the podium here at Dega. We'll see you in the field to Dover. Quite a big switch from a super speedway to a hard-to-drive short track, but it should be fun. Chris, congratulations.
Thanks. Have a great night, guys.
Chris Progar, one of the co-owners of this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, ends tonight in third place. And you heard his words there. I mean, so grateful this league has built the way it has in a short amount of time. When Sunoco Cup Series ended its season and there had to be someone to step up, Steven and Chris got together and said, hey, we want to keep this series alive. They've done so, and so far over this 2025 season, it's been nothing short of exciting. Francisco, let's talk more about what we should expect to see down the road, because Dover is next. The Monster Mile, and like we had tonight, we didn't talk about it, Talladega, one of the graphically refreshed tracks on the iRacing service as of late. Dover in the same batch. And as we get to another short track race, we should see some more fireworks even past tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this in the pre-race portion of the show tonight. There's just so much variety on the schedule between now and Daytona. You have the 1 mile Monster Mile, the Michigan International Speedway, which operates almost like a semi-super speedway race with the drafting there and how fast you're going. The Pocono Tricky Triangle, the unique racetrack, the most American thing according to Jaden Porter. Nashville Super Speedway, the concrete mile and a third. Gateway, an oval 1 mile and a quarter length. And then Daytona, all leading up to our playoff run starting at Charlotte in June 1st. So we have all of April to begin, starting in 2 days, and all the way through the end of, or at least mid-May, since we have the Memorial Day off, but all the way up until May 18th. That's when these drivers have all the time available to try and do something about their playoff situation. And between now and Daytona, we're slowly going to start talking about points, playoff positions, who's in, who's out. Those guys that need opportunities, that need to work on their race finishes to get up there. We haven't really talked about it, but now as go time starts to approach here, we got 6 races to go after tonight's event. Now it's when it's going to start to matter.
Not a lot of time when you think of the grand scheme of things. It flies in an absolute blast, and so we'll see what happens with the rights of the drivers as they get down to it, who will find themselves successful in the playoff schedule as we move on. The chase to Charlotte is continuous as we head to the Monster Mile. Next week, you will not want to miss it. In early April, we'll have coverage of that live next Sunday night at around 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. You'll find the coverage right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. But until then, that will do it for us here from Talladega Super Speedway. Craig Parks, in an unprecedented first career win, helps with his teammate Eric Schaefer in overtime, and Parks adds his name to the winners list in 2025. For Chris Progar and Steven Stepien at the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, for everyone at the KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Bauer and Keelan Belsha, and for our crew on the broadcast tonight, join alongside of Francisco Bacalhau, I'm Kenneth Bueno saying so long from Talladega. We'll see you at Dover in 1 week time.